After seeing that structure, the pyramids themselves are insignificant to me. What's beneath the ground is more significant by multitudes than the pyramid itself. At Elephantine Island, there's a temple that you can clearly see. Something energetic came in and just smashed it. Atlantis isn't just a ring city that Plato talked about. The ring city was one capital of dozens of capitals that existed on the planet at the same time. They discovered something on Mars, xenon, in the soil and in the atmosphere in abundant amounts. It's not any type of xenon, it's weapons-grade xenon. So something nuclear happened on Mars. The flower of life is the source of zero-point energy, and it exists at every Planck unit in space-time throughout the entire known universe, even within us. There are UAPs that we have developed and built ourselves, but some of them, of course, are not ours and are, potentially from under the ocean, potentially from deep space, potentially from Antarctica, opening in the ice. I mean, we don't know. The Library of Alexandria was a book heist. Yes, there was fire. Yes, there was books burning. It was a distraction for the largest knowledge heist in history. And that knowledge is located predominantly, 2/3 of that knowledge is located in the Vatican.
I mean, we'll see where the conversation goes, but yeah, that's what I love the most about you is like you come in here, it's like there's no rehearsal. No. It's just like,
let's go.
Yeah, exactly. Ask whatever. So no, I appreciate that about you, man.
No problem, man. No problem. That's so I guess that's why I've been on so many shows, because there's so many topics. I've been on a wide range of topics.
Yep.
Where some people they specialize in one area, which is fine.
Yep.
But I've been fortunate to be able to talk on a lot of different topics.
I've noticed that. Even since you came on my show, you went on the Joe Rogan Experience, and then you went on Sean Ryan.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you, how do you compare and contrast those two podcasts? Like, what were they like?
I thought that both were really good. Sean Ryan's got a nice technique. He kind of really just flows too. He has a list of questions, but he never really sticks to them. He kind of gets it started and then sees where the conversation goes. He lets you talk. He lets you get to your epiphany moment within what you're trying to say. Which I think sometimes is important, but you also have to, he's also careful to still guide the conversation. Joe Rogan's interesting because he almost likes to have more of an interactive conversation where he wants to interact his own knowledge and stuff into it. So sometimes you're not able to really fully get a point across, or sometimes he'll cut you off, but it's okay, but I like Sean Kelly's style, Sean Kelly's style, yeah. What was crazy was when that Wes Huff got on the show, and he was making all these claims. When I was on, he was Googling things and bringing it up on the screen in real time. But when this guy was on there, they didn't Google anything. They didn't look up any information. And I was like, I started thinking the psyche of a person, like, why do they automatically want to believe something from someone without judging or testing it or putting it to the fire versus someone else, they want to pull up every single thing.
Yeah.
It's interesting, just a human thing, a human trait or whatever it is, but it's interesting to watch.
Yeah. I watched about 5 minutes of that Wesley Huff on Joe Rogan thing, and I couldn't take it, man. I had to turn it off. Yeah. It was too much.
I think he made an apology video for some of the stuff he said that was incorrect on there and things like that. I was just like, this guy just used this clout-chasing technique to get all the way up to this level. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, you've been busy, man. You went to Egypt. When were you there?
I was there October of 24 last.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What was it like? What'd you see?
Oh, man. Egypt is so incredible because every time you go to Egypt, you're going to see something new. I went to the Ramesseum for the first time, and there's this like 1,000-ton statue made of crystal diorite. And the statue is broken into a couple of massive pieces. But when you understand that the ancient Egyptians that built that from one solid stone, first of all, they believed that these structures and these statues were alive. And the reason why they believed they were alive is because of the crystal content, 40% crystal content. And we know that crystal, in my opinion, are like living beings. They can communicate, they can transmit information, they can replicate, they vibrate at frequencies, and they have energy. Like on a big lighter, when you strike that lighter, it's not a flint in there that's making the flame. It's actually a crystal inside the lighter. And when you put pressure on the crystal, it gives off a spark of energy, and then the fuel catches that spark, and then you have a flame. And so by that method, they have energy. and they can store information, great amounts of information. Matter of fact, the future of storage capacity is going to be molecular storage drives that have a combination of DNA and crystal technology. And so the ancient Egyptians somehow had this knowledge. They knew that crystals were alive, and some of them believed they were sentient. And by building these statues and temples with those materials, they believed that they were living structures. Yeah.
Do you think it was the ancient Egyptians that built all those huge statues, or do you think it goes back? It goes back further.
Pre-dynastic. Yeah. I mean, we say ancient Egyptian as just a way for people to identify kind of what we're talking about.
Yeah.
But the dynastic era Egyptians really inherited a lot of what was already there. Just like the Teotihuacan civilization, the Mayans inherited what was already there. The Mayans themselves had nothing to do with building Teotihuacan and the surrounding structures. And you can see as you go forward in time, the knowledge gets more lost as the structures become pieces of stone that are much smaller and kind of almost glued together. The columns at some of these temples, like at Luxor, I mean, they're stacked, chunks of stone. They're not one solid giant megalithic column.
Right.
But if you go to the temple of Seti the first, all of a sudden you see a giant column. You go to the Assyrian, you see giant stone that weighs thousands of tons, one piece. So the further you come forward in time into the dynastic era, the more simple the construction actually is. It's still impressive, but it definitely is not megalithic.
You think it was copies of the original, much more ancient structures that were,
They had to become use a lot of ingenuity to copy those ancient techniques to the best of their ability, kind of like the obelisk we have at Washington, D.C. I mean, that's a million pieces. It's not one giant piece of stone. Yeah.
Yeah, and it would make sense that if that stuff was that old, that the tools that were used to construct it are just no longer in existence.
Yeah, the tools are gone.
Yeah.
Some of the tools were probably removed on purpose, because I believe that the tools that were used were considered tools of special access. And so they were very careful. We know this because we hardly have found anything except for tool marks. We found the tool marks for the tools, but we really haven't found the tools. And the tool marks are very telling. Like, we can see some of the tool marks are laying out on the plateau of Giza. When we take people there on tour, we pick up pieces that have drill holes in them. And you can tell by this piece of diorite or this granite, the way the drill hole was made, it's not from a drill that we have today. It's something extremely sophisticated. Some of the cuts around even the toes and the toenail, the bed of the nail, we don't have something that can duplicate that exact technique today on that same type of stone with that hardness on the Moses scale. So we know that they had specific tools. They had very intricate and high-tech tools, but they were very careful to keep those tools extremely, extremely kept away from the general public.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've been doing scientific analysis on the vases, and there's very clearly a couple of different classes of that these vases fall into, and one is extremely precise, and it's just impossible to make with primitive tools.
Yeah.
I mean, it has to be machined. There's just no doubt about it.
So you mean they didn't use chicken bones and copper chisels?
They weren't using chicken bones.
Okay, because I know that's what they told me one time.
That's what I heard too. Yeah, no copper has been found in any of these things so far. I mean, no chicken bones have been found anywhere. So, I always think back to Flint Dibble went on Danny Jones, and he's talking about this. They just attached a rock to a stick and they twisted it with their hands like this, and he's using that method to explain how something can be precise to within, less than 1/1000th of an inch of perfect circularity. It's just impossible.
Not going to happen.
It's impossible. And so, they were machined, and it's not just a lot of the vases that we see. And it's like, we could say, okay, well then these vases must be modern fakes, but we still see that level of precision and accuracy all over ancient Egypt.
All over. Every year I take people to the Cairo Museum, one of the oldest museums there. And we go there specifically because it's not the most nicest looking place to go, but it's decent. But in there, we have these tons of those vases going from ancient times, proving that they were making these exact things that you have here back then, thousands of years old. And again, you can clearly see these things are machined. They're almost laser precision. And the ability for them to hollow out this stone and create these interiors, it's just mind-bending how they did it. And again, something that we can't duplicate today without breaking it.
Yeah, it's the methods of construction are still a complete mystery to me after spending almost basically 2 years on this, a little bit more than 2 years on this now. I mean, we still don't have a good sense for how they were able to make it.
Yeah.
You know, they always point to that glyph on the wall with Egyptians working alabaster stone, which is as soft as marble. It's very, very soft, and they're using primitive tools. But they're making these huge alabaster vases. They're much different than these small hard stone vases, and it's 2,000 years after we know that these were found. You know? And these could be way older than that. So, it's a mystery.
It's a mystery. And like I said before, next time I'll come with my Geiger counter so we can measure the rads and see the radioactivity in these diorite and the crystal diorite and crystal granite vases. We see in Egypt when I take my Geiger counter, they're giving off higher than background level radiation, which is wild.
Yeah, that is wild. Yeah. I had Joe McMonagle on earlier this week, so he'll be the episode that comes out right before you. And you know, he's remote viewer #1 for the United States government, and he claims to have remote viewed Mars in 1 million BC and saw a civilization that was on Mars. And his theory is that humans were likely on both planets at that point in time. But he has some theories about the radiation and how it's found in ancient Egypt and how it could have possibly been used, how nuclear technology could have been used to create these vases and a lot of the other stone structures that we see in Egypt.
Wow.
Do you have any thoughts there? I think that you're kind of on the same page as it relates.
I'm on the same frequency as him. I mean, to me, his information, his research is pretty accurate. Now, of course, it's conjecture and based off of our own individual research, but I came across something called the Epic of Atrahasis. The Epic of Atrahasis is located in the British Museum. It's an ancient Sumerian tablet, and it has an account of the worker race that were doing the work on Earth and both on Mars called the Igigi. Some say Igigi, some say Igigi. I say Igigi. And these were the worker beings. Now, they weren't slaves. They were Anunnaki beings or the Anuna or the gods of old, but they were the working class. Just like if we have a construction site, we're going to have a master architect, right? We'll have a person that runs the yard. You know, we'll have a worker class underneath him. You know, so that person will oversee all the employees, and they'll actually be doing the grunt work. So these were the grunt workers. They were, according to the text, cleaning out the Euphrates and Tigris rivers. They were working on Mars, and they were somehow, creating civilization there and a civilization here. So they created a double breakaway civilization, these group of people. And they actually ended up wanting to go to war against the kings of Earth, which was Enki, Enlil, and Anu, because they felt like they began to be treated like slaves. And they were saying, well, we're not slaves and you're not giving us a break. You're forcing us to continue this hard labor. And on top of everything else, they said they didn't have any women. Okay. So they were very upset about that too. And so they went to a place in South Africa called Adam's Calendar, and they encircled the camp of Enki, Enlil, and Anu. And there's this whole script inside the text where they're going back and forth about getting ready to go to war and have this coup. And that's when Enki said he had an idea. We can slay one of the gods with one of the beings that exist here and add our essence to that being and get it to bear the load. So an agreement was made, and they decided to allow our cousins, Homo sapiens cousins, to become the race that would do all this work. And they would train them on how to do this work. And so I believe that there was a concurrent civilization running on Earth and Mars at the same time based on that text, because it says it right there. I don't know who was making up a sci-fi movie thousands of years ago. I mean, when you got to worry about surviving the night, right? Not getting eaten by animals and so forth and hunting for the village. So somebody wrote down, I believe, what they saw, what they learned about, and documented in great detail that there was a concurrent civilization on Earth and Mars, which confirms his work. And that they were high tech because they had the ability to travel back and forth. So there was something going on. If you look at the account of the Anunnaki, they appear to have been about 450,000 years is when they actually arrived on Earth. Now, to achieve what they've done, it's just a hypothesis now. They could be at least 1 million years ahead of us technologically. Everything is leading to what McMonagle said in terms of his remote viewing. I believe that he's pretty close to spot on. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a fascinating conversation, and it's a new theory for me. I'm not super familiar with it, but it's fascinating.
It's definitely fascinating. But there's been so many anomalies that we found on Mars. We've cataloged over 50,000 anomalies on Mars. And I can send you some images of some of the things that we've had that made the news. Mainstream news have put these on screen because they're like, what is this doing there? And NASA never has an answer. They just say, you feel free to publish them, but you probably have pareidolia, which means you're just seeing things.
Right. Yeah. You're just crazy. Yeah, I mean, some of the things that are there are just so compelling. I mean, when you look at the face and like, why do they have to Photoshop the face on Mars if there's nothing to see here? And I mean, it's proven that they've Photoshopped that face and changed it, and they're telling us that we're just seeing things. I mean, that's what they do to the Gen Pop. I mean, they're just like, you guys are crazy, man.
They just brainwash you to call you crazy, so you'll be distracted from it.
Right.
They discovered something on Mars interesting with the Mars missions. They discovered xenon in the soil and in the atmosphere in abundant amounts. This is why Mars is called the god of war. It's not any type of xenon. It's weapons-grade xenon. You can only get weapons-grade xenon as a side effect of a nuclear war. So something nuclear happened on Mars, again, adding to all these theories and research, making it seem a lot more accurate, that lead us to believe that there was some type of war that extended from Earth all the way to the moon and all the way even to Mars.
Yeah, and there's evidence of oceans on Mars in the past. Is that right?
Oceans, they found lakes, liquid lakes. NASA has. They've made public press releases about this. They showed hills and buttes, almost like mountains with water running down at specific times of the day. And they've gotten to areas now where underneath the ice, there's actually flowing water. So they've now admitted that there's flowing water on Mars. In the past, they said no magnetic field, but now they have found magnetic fields around Mars. And they've also said that even though those magnetic fields are weaker because Mars has shifted on its axis due to some type of a major catastrophe, about 45 degrees. But they say that because Mars is spinning 23.5 hours on its axis, and moving around the sun at a decent speed, it's creating something called bow shock, which is bending the solar rays around the planet, preventing the more damaging, DNA-damaging radiation from reaching the very surface. So now they're saying life can grow on the surface. And now they're also saying that the soil on Mars is better for growing crops than the soil on Earth. How would they know that? They're taking samples. They're learning all this information about Mars. So Mars has water. It has brine, which is salt water. It has lakes. It has a magnetic field. And something is producing an enormous amount of methane in the atmosphere on a consistent basis. Usually when you produce methane, it means life. It's a byproduct of life. And also, oxygen is escaping into the upper atmosphere, but what is producing more oxygen that's filling in behind it? So there's something making oxygen, there's something making methane, there's a magnetic field, there's bow shock to protect things on the surface, there's xenon in the atmosphere and the soil, and they're saying the soil is good for growing crops. So you start putting all this together, you can see the beginning of them thinking, hey, let's create a breakaway civilization on Mars and start something up there, which is exactly what Elon Musk is talking about doing.
Right. Yeah. It's one of those things that's just like, why won't NASA go back and take the rover over to Cydonia and check out like what's really going on there? Like, why do they avoid that entire region?
They avoid it because if you go to Google and type in Avebury, UK ordnance map, and you download the Avebury, UK ordnance map, and then you take an image of Cydonia from the Space Agency website, and you scale it to the size of the ordnance map, you can then overlay it, and all the anomalies perfectly align with the hills that were man-made at Avebury in the UK. Even the pathway through the field walking towards the hill and the 19.5 degree angles all match perfectly, down to the millimeter. So somebody made a copy of Cydonia on Earth.
Wow. Yeah. That's crazy, man.
Yeah.
How far do you think that Avebury goes back?
Avebury has to go back thousands of years too, in my opinion. Somebody moved an enormous amount of mass of mud. To me, it's almost an achievement, just like building the pyramids, to create those anomalies that would match perfectly with the face and some of the structures within Cydonia. And to understand the 19.5 degree angle of those pathways that they've got through the fields to perfectly align like that, to make an actual copy of what's there in Cydonia, they were sending us a message saying, hey, We are linked to these people. We are intrinsically linked. And here's the evidence right here. Yeah.
What about the moon?
The moon is, to me, an incredible thing to think about. Now, everyone's saying, we didn't go to the moon. We've never gone to the moon. Look at this fake video. There's a couple things to point out. The biggest thing that people say is, first of all, there's the Van Allen radiation belt. It would kill us. We can never get back. We can never pass the Van Allen radiation belt. Well, yes, you can, because it's just basic bare science. Now, Van Allen did have concerns about the radiation belt, which they discovered it was there during the Mercury missions. They did some tests. They even launched a bomb up there and blew it up, which was crazy. Just add more radiation to the radiation belt. But what they found was that through the scans, low orbiting satellites, that there are these huge pathways that lead through the radiation belt because Earth's magnetic field whips up and opens up these, what they call highways. They also found through testing that if you were in a capsule that was unprotected from radiation, you'd have to be there for a very long time before the radiation would be lethal. But the capsule that goes to the moon passes through it within 3 days, and it goes through what they call an opening highway, a magnetic highway. So when they created their launch trajectory, they actually mathematically calculated the opening, the magnetic field opening, that they would fly through to get into deep space, okay? To leave Earth's atmosphere and get out into deep space. So that's one thing. So the Van Allen radiation belt, irrelevant. The second thing is, now it's a 3-day journey to the moon. You get to the moon and they're saying, well, they didn't land. Well, okay, you have to understand, why did they go to the moon in the first place? Prior to going there, they already had sent a few missions to do some observance of the moon, reconnaissance mission. And they saw things that are anomalies that shouldn't be there. So they had a meeting and said, if we send people here and they see these anomalies, and we see these anomalies and they see them, they're going to be like, wait a minute, there was somebody on the moon already? We weren't the first people on the moon? What's going on? And who were they? Where'd they come from? And why are they gone? Too many questions. Let's go there and first of all, see what it is and bring some samples back, because of course, what's the first thing that any government wants to do? They want to learn how they can weaponize technology and monetize it. So they did send a mission to the moon. Apollo missions were real. Now, if you download the black box audio from Apollo 11, which is now available from the FOIA, the Freedom of Information Act, you can get the redacted document and the audio, which I've been in a documentary of, both are shown. You hear Neil saying, look at those convex craters down there. He's saying dome structures now. I bet the people down there never get out. That's a weird thing to say on a very serious mission. They land, and there's also some audio that's available to the general public from ham radio operators at the time of the moon landing, where you hear them saying that, one of the astronauts saying, they landed on the crater across from us and they're watching us. And that was confirmed by Norman Bergman, one of the heads of NACA at the time and a lead person in NASA. NACA used to be before NASA. His resume stretches down the street and around the corner. This guy's one of the top, rocket scientists basically in the world. He wrote a book called The Rings of Saturn, which is famous. But he was in the actual operational facility when the landing was happening. Now, you don't just walk into that facility. So I'm talking about a high-level person. He had an interview, and in that interview, he said that people came out of that ship. They came out. He said there were 8 to 10 foot tall people in his estimate, and they were in all black or either black. And he said that they were watching the moon landing. On the way to the moon, the astronauts reported an object following them to the moon. And they called back to Houston and said, hey, where are our boosters at? Now, the guys, they're like, the boosters, they've been gone. The boosters are gone, man. What are you talking about? They were afraid to alert them to something. So they were really just trying to use code to be like, there's something we see with us here following us. And that's also available to the general public. So something followed them to the moon as well. An object, a technological object, which they called a booster. They couldn't figure out, but they didn't say it looked like, a rag or something that fell off the ship. They thought it was technology. And then, of course, the mission is to go to the moon, show part real footage, show part fake footage, acquire this, whatever it is you're going to get, bring it back to Earth so we can analyze and find out exactly what it is. And so they did show a combination of real and fake. Now, people say that we didn't land on the moon because they said, well, there's no, the footprint that you see, the boot print, when you look at the bottom of the boot from what the astronauts wore, it's a smooth bottom. Well, they don't understand. There's something called an overshoe that they put on, which weighs, I forget how many pounds each one weighs, to keep them firm to the surface. The overshoe has these huge ridges on the bottom. It's made of Kevlar. And the overshoe goes on right when you're getting ready to do a moonwalk. You don't wear that inside the capsule. It's part of the actual walking on the moon outfit. And there's videos online that people can download from the time how they made them, how they work, what type of material it is, how they slip on, how they strap on, and everything else. They never show the overshoe when they talk about these conspiracy images, which is sitting right next to the suit with the smooth bottom. And all these little things add up to, yes, they went to the moon, but yes, they lied about it. There's a famous image of astronauts standing on the moon with their helmets off. That's actually in Florida on the East Coast, at the Space Coast. I found the original image, it's actually a full color image of them behind the NASA facility doing a training mission outside. Somebody rock cropped it with Photoshop and turned it into the moon. And now look, how can you have your helmet off on the moon? So all these things, add up. Now, people say, well, why would they do this if they really did it? Well, because, that's one of them right there. That's the rock cropped image. Yeah, if you're able to see the original image, you'll see that there's a building in the back, a blue and white building in the back, and roads and everything else, the parking lot. Yeah, and so that's what they did. But what's so interesting is when you go there, you have to understand the mission is to acquire top secret information and bring it back to Earth. And so, yes, they went to the moon. Yes, they lied about it. One last thing before we go to the next thing. They show a video clip of the director. They said his name was, what's that director again? It'll come to me in a second.
Sure. Stanley Kubrick.
Stanley Kubrick, yeah. Okay, so Stanley, it's not what you think. I have the full version of the video. And they only show a clip, which takes it out of context. He's being coached by somebody on the full version, which I was going to do on my newest podcast, actually. And in the full version of the video I was able to obtain, he's being coached by somebody to say certain things. They actually get into an argument about what he should say and how to say it and everything else. You can finally see that it's not even real. It's part of like a scene he was acting out. But they've taken a small clip of that and turned it into this whole, added it to the conspiracy. So what I'm saying is there's a lot going on that doesn't add up to a conspiracy. The conspiracy of not going. The conspiracy is not that they didn't go. It's what did they find and why did they hide it from us? That's the real conspiracy.
Okay. Yeah. Fascinating. Yes. So the entities that were following their craft on the way there and the entities that landed on the crater that were observing them, I mean, if I'm like future humans and I want to go back and see some of the most important, incredible times that have happened throughout human history, I mean, that's one that I want to be present at, right? I mean, so, I mean, it could be a possibility that it was, future humans, could be a possibility that it's just straight up extraterrestrials, could be breakaway civilization, I guess. I mean, any thoughts on like, I guess I'm asking, the UAP phenomenon in general, what do you think it is?
It's a combination of everything you said. I think we have ultra-dimensionals, interdimensionals. I think that we have, full-blown third-dimensional aliens. I believe that we also have potential time travelers as well. I think we're getting a combination of so many various different things. I believe there's also life in space, almost like animal life. On the ISS, they found barnacles, kind of like the same kind you find on the back of a whale or a ship that's just sitting on the dock for some time. Space barnacles. I mean, how do they get that on the outside of the vessel, right? And so there's things up there. There are things that look like moving snakes that have been recorded by captured on the NASA images. There are objects when we had the tether incident during one of the space missions. During one of the shuttle missions, we had a tether incident where they were trying to extend this tether and electrify it. They were working on some type of propulsion idea, and the tether broke loose and went out. Now, the tether was miles long. So now this gave us the ability to measure the objects that were caught on the multi-spectrum camera that were passing above it and beneath it. These things were sizes of football fields. The tether incident, you could probably implement that right into this clip. It's a famous thing that was one of the main reasons that NASA stopped doing the live feeds was the tether incident. So there's things going on up there, objects that are unexplainable, that we can't see with the naked eye because these were in multi-spectrum, right? That's the tether there. So you see that tether detached, and now these objects are flying all around it, and as they pass over and under it, we were now able to measure the estimated size of these objects, somewhere the size of 2 and 3 football fields. So we're talking about massive objects. Until they turned the camera back into regular viewing mode, they just disappeared. This is in multi-spectrum mode, you see? And they're like discs with notches in them, and they move and they kind of vibrate a little bit. And nobody had an answer for these things, not even NASA. Yeah. So
was there did I hear something about like the official explanation finally came out and it was like ice particles or something?
Oh yeah, they always call it ice particles. That's their standard, you know. But ice particles don't just change direction.
Right.
That's the problem with their ice particle theory.
Right.
You know, they had another image that where and one of these objects was coming down towards the planet, and they shot something toward it, and it went through the atmosphere.
I saw that.
And then it shot off before it got hit.
Yeah.
They said ice particles. It's always an ice particle. It's right along there with the chicken wings and the copper chisels.
Right,
you know,
right.
And the swamp gas.
Yeah, swamp gas.
Yeah.
Yep,
So, but yeah, there are UAPs that we have developed and built ourselves, I believe through a lot of reverse engineering. I believe that they discovered that Nikola Tesla's technique for creating this scalar type technology, this scalar radar, was incredible. Now, they accidentally then used the scalar radar on our own craft and even other craft, and realized that it disorients the navigation systems. So when these objects would show up, like these UFOs, things that undeniable UFOs, like in 1947, Roswell, they point the scalar weapon at this thing, the scalar beam at this, and it disorients the craft, and the craft comes down. And they go, jackpot, we can do this all the time. We can just start aiming this frequency, and maybe some of these will come down, and then we can take them and we can reverse engineer them and make our own vessels out of them or weaponize them. And I think that's what happened. So yeah, scalar technology is real. It's deadly, but it's a great scanning technology for radar, right? And they've been utilizing scalar waves now for a very, very long time. Yeah, and I believe that's how they've been able to reverse engineer and make these ARVs, alien reproduction vehicles. But some of them, of course, are not ours and are, potentially from under the ocean, potentially from deep space, potentially from Antarctica, opening in ice. I mean, we don't know. There's so many potentials, multidimensional, If you can obtain the subatomic frequency and vibration of this dimension, and you're from another dimension, then you can walk right in and you can be here. And our vision of you would kind of be blurred and obscured because you're not truly really within the dimension. You're kind of inhabiting it in a very weird frequency. And so this could be apparitions, this could be paranormal activity. All these things might be able to be explained from higher dimensional beings making a visit here to the third dimension.
You think Jake Barber and that egg-shaped UAP you think he's a legitimate guy, that he is who he says he is, and that was a real UAP incident? He's the helicopter pilot. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, I have no reason to doubt him. I mean, there are so many now, hundreds of thousands of sightings in modern times, like recently, over the last maybe 20 years. And there are, literally millions of people talking about having, whether it's a close encounter of the first or second or third or fourth kind. At some point, we have to say there's too much circumstantial evidence that something is happening and something is engaging mankind.
Yeah. I mean, the U.S. government is telling us this is a real phenomenon. I mean, not that we always believe them necessarily, but I think it's to the point where it's so overwhelmingly obvious to everybody that something's going on.
Yeah, and they had to do it.
Yeah,
they had to do it because we are creating our own technology now in private space.
Right.
We're launching our own satellites. Even my cell phone can zoom into the moon and see the craters now, S25 Samsung. So our technology is advancing at an extremely high pace, and they want to get ahead of the curve because we're going to start seeing things on our own without them. And we're going to know that, hey, you guys are lying. Like, we see this, we recorded this.
Right.
And they got to be held accountable for protecting us and making sure that we're safe and everything else. So they had to get ahead of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Back to the moon for a second. Do you think that it is a natural object? Do you think that it is a spaceship? Do you think that it was broken off from the Earth? Like, a lot of the coincidences about the moon, its size, its, I mean, what are your thoughts on the moon?
Great question, actually. There's a multifaceted answer to this. The first thing is let's debunk the debunk. The moon doesn't come from an impact with the Earth. The moon is primarily helium-3, number one, on the surface. It doesn't have any kind of features or any matter from Earth on it. The moon is a giant energy source of free, clean, burning energy. And so if it was an impact from the Earth, it would have more geological residue from Earth than what it has. It doesn't have that. The second thing is in the Enuma Elish and the 7 tablets of creation, we see that the moon was part of a moon orbiting another planet called Tiamat before Earth even existed in the solar system. It was Mercury, Venus, and Tiamat. Tiamat was 4 to 6 times larger than Earth. It was a water-bearing planet with land and life. It has own orbit around the sun, and it had moons. And Mars was a moon of this planet, as well as our moon. And when, according to the epic, when it got collided into by Nibiru, or really now in the newer version of the text, meaning 7,000 years ago, when they changed it again, it was called Marduk. Marduk from the biblical text or from the Torah. He wanted to be the destroyer. Crashed into Tiamat and blew it into pieces. A huge chunk swung away and recoalesced with the water, land, and organic material needed for life and became the Earth, took the 3rd spot from the sun. And Tiamat itself slung Mars into this very strange elliptical orbit around the sun, charred one side and kept one side smooth because of a flood. Mars has a charred side and the most smoothest side of any other moon or planet in the solar system. And it's in a very strange orbit that scientists, astrophysicists, not Billy Carson, astrophysicists say it could have been orbiting something else because of the way it was slung and created this orbit around the sun. That's why we can only rendezvous with Mars every 2 years on its own perigee, I believe. And then our moon also gravitationally was tugged by the mass that was pulling away to become Earth eventually and recoalesce. The rest of it became the asteroid belt. Now people say, well, there's not enough mass in the asteroid belt to account for a planet of that size. Of course not. The planet exploded. Look to the inner Oort cloud and the outer Oort cloud. Beyond Pluto, that's where the rest of the mass is from Tiamat. In the text, it says this. Now, this is incredible because I want to know where they watched this planet from, because they said that Tiamat was so beautiful that it rivaled the sun's glory when the sun shone on it. But Earth didn't exist yet. So where did they see this planet? What position in the sky were they in when they witnessed the glory of Tiamat before it blew up? They were somewhere else on another planet, obviously. So it's a huge story that nobody ever really talks about, but it's incredible that Earth itself and the moon recoalesced as part of that. Now, to add credence to this, if you go into some of these mines, these coal mines and so forth, where they're digging deep into different layers of the Earth and they're going down, they're finding vases 300 million years old. They're finding hammers 100 million years old. They're finding all these artifacts. Well, how can they be that old if human beings weren't around back then? Well, in my opinion, this is a hypothesis. I believe that we're finding remnants of civilizations when we were part of another planet. And that's why we're finding these things down in these deep mines where they're hundreds of millions of years old. And the moon itself, a radar scan was done of the moon, a ground-penetrating radar about 30 meters beneath the surface. Chris Maroney, his YouTube is Mars Anomalies. He did a phenomenal little mini documentary on this, showing all the original raw scans.
When were the scans done?
That was about maybe 5-6 years ago now. And he shows you the raw data of what you see beneath the surface. It looks like gigantic beams. Now, what I believe is that the moon itself was originally a true spatial heavenly body moon that was then converted in some way using technology like how we have all this underground stuff here on Earth now we're just finding. They converted it into some type of a station or a base, and they built something on the interior of the moon, which is why it's predominantly, probably mostly hollow, as we found out through one of the experiments that when they dropped the capsule on it and it rang like a bell, and also that these beams are massive. They're like megalithic steel. We can't say steel, but they're megalithic beams. We don't know what they're made out of, but it's quite possible that the moon itself was put into orbit, put into a specific Lagrange point from Earth, to be able to actually cover the sun and make a shield over the sun so we can have solstice, so we can have solar eclipses and lunar eclipses and so forth. Also to balance Earth's wobble so that we can survive on the surface without crazy weather patterns, and to also balance the flow of water as it goes around, the Earth. It balances the flow of water on the oceans on the Earth too. So it has a great purpose. It's positioned specifically at the right point, and the fact that it's in this geostationary orbit and spins at the same speed as we are on our axis, so we can only see one side, is also a telling feature of some type of interaction or artificial design. Because there was a mission to the moon called the Clementine mission by the military. This was a low lunar orbiting mission. And when I saw the name Clementine, I said, I bet it never came back, because there's a song, "Oh, my darling Clementine, you were lost and gone forever." I said, let me research this. So I pulled out all the data on this thing. They got gigs of images too. Start reading into it. Yes, it never came back. The Clementine never returned. It supposedly crashed into something on the far side of the moon, the side we can never see. But it sent back gigs of data, and those images have a lot of anomalies in them, things that shouldn't be on the moon on that side. So again, to me, more information that's okay. We know, they know, there's something strange about this moon. It's not a natural feature through natural solar system creation, and that in some way there may have been some interaction with ancient civilizations that we just don't know who they were, that did inhabit it, live there, maybe still utilize it for other purposes. We don't even know, but I think the missions were to go try to figure out what was going on up there, who they are, and what their purpose was, and were they even a threat.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
In any of your research about like the ancient solar system and kind of how the planets came to be and where they formed and whatnot, do you have any thoughts on why Uranus is rotating on its side? Why it's like the only planet that doesn't rotate horizontally? It rotates vertically. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah. So in some of the text, it talks about this object passing through the solar system. So when in the beginning of the solar system, there's a lot of chaos. And with this chaos, the heavenly bodies, all these planets and moons are moving kind of erratically. Now, how did this happen? Well, we need to go first, before we go into why Uranus is on the side, we need to understand how did things become, how did other objects start moving through our solar system? That's the question we need to answer first. We have to go and look at the new scientific data in astrophysics, which is now peer-reviewed and being taught in universities. When we look up at the night sky in a dark sky, and we see that swath of stars going across the sky, that is not the Milky Way galaxy. I repeat, that is not the Milky Way. We've been taught that it was, but we were wrong this entire time. Scientists and astrophysicists have discovered now that that's something called the Sagittarius Dwarf Galaxy. Not the Sagittarius constellation, that's something totally different. The Sagittarius Dwarf Galaxy. The Sagittarius Dwarf Galaxy is being swallowed up by the Milky Way. We're absorbing it right now at this moment. The Sagittarius Dwarf Galaxy is intersecting exactly, the pinpoint is right where our solar system sits. That's the absorption point. Imagine a galaxy coalescing and merging with the Milky Way and bringing in all of its stars and planets and moons. Gravitationally, our sun is going to attract some of that, all right? And we're going to have a situation where we have rogue planets. They discovered millions of rogue planets in the Milky Way. Millions. These are planets with no suns, just roaming free in the dark night, and brown dwarfs all over the place.
It's got to be frozen, I guess, at that point,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, they'll be frozen. If they get near a sun, they probably warm up, and gas out and things like that. But full-size planets. So something in the Enuma Elish struck me when it said that these objects were trying to gain their own circuits. They call it circuits, not orbits. Same thing, though. These people were very smart. And this is thousands of years old. They understood orbiting. But during these objects trying to obtain their circuits, they were coming through the inner solar system, wreaking havoc. Now, scientists at NASA and Caltech just released, I think it was probably 4 years ago, the discovery of Planet 9, an object orbiting our sun in a very strange elliptical orbit. In the ancient Sumerian text, they call it Planet X, right? Same planet. They of course didn't want to give it Planet X's name, but they also said in that same write-up that something passed through the solar system and wreaked havoc and made Uranus flip on its side and have it the axis now going north and south instead of east and west. They also said that Saturn and Neptune switched places gravitationally because they can rewind the solar system now with the technology we have with the computer modeling. So they realized that they switched places. Again, they said this happened because a massive object, 4 to 6 times larger than Earth, came through the solar system and wreaked havoc on the orbit of the planets. The Sumerian tablets say an object came through and wreaked havoc on the circuits of the solar system. So they almost copied it from the tablets in a way, but it's incredible that that's what happened. There are rogue planets, and one or more than one moved through our solar system, and they found this other object orbiting beyond the orbit of Pluto in the inner Oort cloud. And I'll send you a clip for this. The astronomer says on the news, that's where we came from. His exact statement.
We know where we are on Earth. We've mapped our planet. Our solar system is still terra incognita. It's full of surprises. This object is something that astronomers said shouldn't even be there. There's a whole other solar system beyond the planets that we know that are full of these things that are sort of planets, sort of comets. Some of them they call dwarf planets. That's what they're calling this one. What we're seeing is, we're seeing our neighborhood. We're seeing what's around us. And then the second part is we're seeing where we came from.
We said we're looking at where we came from. And there's a solar system within our solar system. In the inner Oort cloud area, he says, there's another solar system.
Wow. That's super cool. Yeah. All good. I mean, yeah, speaking of objects coming through the solar system, I've got Avi Loeb coming on, I think in June. I know you guys are good friends, and Harvard scientist, professor, brilliant guy. He taught me so much about Oumuamua as it was approaching the Earth, and it passed right by the Earth. And I think, like, without his perspective on that thing, I think we probably just forget about that object, and it's not even that important, you know. But I mean, this is an object coming from interstellar space somewhere that is traveling into our solar system. It's the first one we've ever picked up. You know, or was it the first or the second? I think it was the first.
It was the first.
Yeah, the first.
It was the first, yeah.
And I mean, it's just so random how close it got to the Earth and then accelerating.
Yeah.
Accelerating after it went past the Earth. I mean, what are your thoughts on that whole thing?
If you look at the shape of Oumuamua, you see that it's a very elongated shape. It doesn't really match a standard asteroid or comet type of shape, right? It would typically probably break up. The next thing is, the way that it was tumbling, it was almost an organized tumble. And it did come from interstellar space, and it did something that we do when we actually launch our own satellites and probes into space. We utilize other planets' gravity for gravitational assist. This object almost seems like it utilized Earth's gravity and the sun's gravity for a gravitational assist to accelerate out of the solar system back into interstellar space. So it almost looks like we're talking about, we would say here on Earth, we would say man-made, right? Or artificial navigation. It didn't seem like something that was just on a natural trajectory. It almost seemed a pre-planned route. My hypothesis is that it could be an ancient relic from a distant time ago that is still moving on some type of a very strange orbit, an old ancient probe that comes into different solar systems around the Milky Way galaxy within this sector of the galaxy and just goes to transmit information and report back what's here, you know, positions of planets and moons, any signs of life, scan the atmospheres of planets and grab the light. And from the light, they can tell what type of technology we have on the surface and what type of minerals that we have on the surface, what we're doing there. All you need is the light of a planet to do that. And just to really gather intel on a consistent basis and keep transmitting it back to whoever. And people say, well, that's vast distances. How can it transmit the information and get back to them? Well, quantum entanglement. All you need is a quantum entangled communications array, and you can transmit the information instantaneously, bypassing the speed of light.
Oh, yeah, that's cool, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, his work on that and his work on kind of gathering those sphericals out of the, I guess it's the Indian Ocean.
Yeah.
Those, I can't wait to dive into some
of that incredible,
stuff.
Man.
Yeah.
I mean, he's incredible. Yeah, he's incredible. And what I love about Avi Loeb is that he's not afraid to go against the mainstream. He's not afraid to make statements that technically the mainstream kind of like, don't say that,
right?
You know,
he's fearless.
He's fearless.
He doesn't care about judgment,
care.
What people think about.
I love it.
And he knows. I mean, he knows he's a brilliant, logical guy who's just like trying to figure stuff out without bias, without like preconceived notions. And he doesn't care what people think, and that's how. I mean, that's kind of reminds me of you a little bit. Like it's like, no. I mean, it's how we move forward. It's how we progress. Is kind of exploring some of these different thoughts that are ultimately going to allow all of us to learn and kind of open up our ability to understand reality. Yeah. So that's why I love you, man.
Yeah, thank you, man. I appreciate it. I love you too, brother. Yep. You got to push the envelope.
That's it.
If we don't push it, we'll never grow.
Yep. Facts. Let's take it back to Egypt. And, there were a couple of things that I saw actually on your X channel, and you were talking about, a handful of things, but the schist disc, Sabu's disc, and potentially that being a device that can stir up water or something. I saw like a little test that you were doing. There it is. Tell me about this device and what are your current thoughts on it?
Well, this device, we take people to see it every year at the museum. It's at the Cairo Museum, and it's made of stone. right? And it looks like metal. And it's very intricate because to create those type of features and cuts out of stone, what type of tool can you possibly use? And it's very stable. They try to say it's like a candle holder or to hold flowers. I mean, they come up with the most, I mean, the asinine statements. I mean, you have to chuckle when they tell you what they think that they were used for. But to me, it's obviously a piece of technology. You can see here this device, which has it spinning at a very, it's actually just a replica of it, 3D modeled, but it's spinning at a high velocity, and you can see how it creates this accretion disk in the water, right? So it's got the water Coriolis effect moving, it's spinning almost like, but it's created, through machinery. And we're thinking and hypothesizing, could this be something that was utilized to move massive amounts of water, to shift water in one direction or another, to propel a vessel of some type even? We don't really know what it's used for, but it was interesting to see the effect that it does have on water. So to me, it's an advanced technology. It's something we don't understand. We don't have the other piece of it that it connected to. Right. But just by hypothesis and experimenting as engineers, you can see by utilizing a very simple tool like a router and attaching it, all of a sudden you have a drill, and attaching it, you have a piece of potential technology that can move massive amounts of water or propel an object through water. Yeah.
Do you know when it was found, if it was broken or if it was intact when it was found in the tomb?
It was just like this.
Just like that. Yeah. Okay.
I don't think they could repair it.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. That's what I couldn't remember if it had been repaired in modern times or not. Yeah. But it's a fascinating object. I just wonder how old it is. Like how old is it really?
We would never really know. Yeah. I mean, to me, when I see that tool being used like that drill utilizing it as a way to move water, I almost envision it on the back of a submarine underwater, and it's spinning and it's propelling a submarine type object underwater, That's a hypothesis. Yeah. But it's really ancient. I think that thing could be, who knows, 8, 10, 15,000 years old. It can be really ancient. They'll never give us the true dates on these things. They themselves, in my opinion, they don't even know. They're just estimating. Right. They're guesstimating, really, is what they're doing. Yeah. And of course, trying to stick within the parameter of mainstream. Right.
Yeah, Ryan, pull up that article that I mentioned last night at dinner about that, the boat and the fishing hooks and the fishing lines and the shark and the tuna. And
that was wild.
Wild, man. I mean, 40,000 years ago, we've got a civilization in Southeast Asia that is catching sharks and tuna, so we know that they had the ability to sail deep out into the ocean and transnavigate the world. And it's like everybody's like asking, where's the evidence for Atlantis? Where's the evidence for lost civilization? It's all over the place, man.
Everywhere.
We have so much stuff like this, and it's like, I think people get too stuck on the word Atlantis and like pinpointing it down to like a specific time or a specific date, and it's like,
or location.
Right, or location, right. Humans in Southeast Asia 40,000 years ago. This is archaeology.org now. I mean, these people are even forced to recognize that this is real.
They have to look. They gotta own up to it, man.
Right. Exactly. So scroll down, and I mean, this is crazy. So it goes into a lot of what they found and what they've excavated, but it's all of this fishing stuff, like hooks and weights and
ropes and bindings.
Yep. All of that.
Sturdy boats.
I mean, it has to be to get out into the middle of the ocean and catch sharks and tuna. I mean,
tuna, man, it's hard to catch a tuna.
Right. And I think they're guessing on the rope thing as well, because I don't know that they found actual ropes from 40,000 years ago. But I mean, it's crazy, man. I mean, the evidence to some of the stuff that you've been talking about for a couple of decades now is it's all over the place.
It's all over the place. I always tell people that Atlantis isn't just a ring city that Plato talked about. Yeah. The ring city was one capital of dozens of capitals that existed on the planet at the same time. Right. Not only on this planet, I also believe it was interplanetary. I believe Earth, the Moon, and Mars, at least those 3 locations, were also Atlantis. And I'm only going by anomalies that we've documented and seen in some of the images and the similarities between those anomalies and what we see on Earth, in like places like Peru and the pyramids of Giza and everything else. When you start to see similar objects or similar type anomalies, you have to say, look, circumstantial evidence. Somebody was making these trips. In the Indian Vedas, they talked about having a Vimana, these flying devices that flew silently using mercury engines. In today's modern idiom, we call them ferrofluid vortex engines, where you spin mercury at a high RPM inside of a torus, pressurize it to 250,000 atmospheres, get it up to 60,000 RPM and electrify it, you get an anti-gravity field. People have done this in laboratories. You don't get zero gravity, but you reduce the weight of an object. They're saying in the Indian Vedas that not only did they have these, they have the flight paths left behind. And they said they can take a complement of men to any planet. I mean, who has time to write that thousands of years ago?
Yeah, nobody.
Nobody. Who even knew what a planet was? Right. These people, in my opinion, they left behind accurate records of real tech. There's even like a blueprint of one of these things. So, you know, they had something going on back then, and we're just now only rediscovering what was going on. And this article you just showed, I mean, people going deep out into the ocean. And what would they use? They had a sextant to navigate? Well, how'd they navigate in the daytime?
Right.
There's no stars in the daytime, and they're not fishing for tuna at night, I don't believe. Right. So we're talking high intelligence, we're talking technology, we're talking navigation, we're talking sturdy boats and all this stuff. The evidence that there were flourishing civilizations here beyond cavemen is all around us.
Yep, no doubt. Yeah, we mentioned Atlantis, we mentioned the Ring City. I'm friends with both Jimmy Corsetti and Randall Carlson. Nice. You know, two good guys. I've had them both on the show.
I love them. Great guys.
Great guys. Yeah. Very smart guys. I mean, they're enlightening the world really through their work. You know, much like yourself, Jimmy is very much into the idea of the Rishat structure being the home city of Atlantis.
Yes.
Randall is more into the Azores as being like the primary city. And I think, you know, I respect both of them. I think Jimmy is totally open to, you know, this was a widespread thing. This wasn't just the Rishat structure, but the evidence that he's brought for the Rishat structure is mind-blowing.
I watched it. His work on that is just incredible.
It is.
I love Jimmy Corsetti. I think his work is phenomenal. I think he's very articulate. I think he gets his point across in a very good way. And I love his research behind what he does.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, and Randall Carlson as well. I love Randall as well, man. Those two great people in this field that are really helping to push the narrative forward. And every one of us has a slightly different perspective. And guess what? That's okay.
Right.
It's okay, because at the end of the day, we're painting a picture and someone brings a piece to the puzzle, and eventually we'll have all the pieces.
Right.
And we'll be able to learn a lot more about what may have happened in the ancient past.
Yep. Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, but I think that they're kind of. I think you would agree that it's not as if it's one spot. You know, it's not like one location and kind of getting into one location as a lock-in for. You know, this is Atlantis. I mean, you're talking the way that you describe it and the way that I think you think about it is we're talking about a global civilization.
I believe it was a global civilization when you look at the Aztlan Wall, and you look at even, like I say, just the structures we have in America and the Americas. I just believe that a lot of it's related to the Atlantean civilization. I do believe that they're tied into this ancient text that some people just don't resonate with, and that's okay. They don't resonate. Maybe some people do or don't. The Emerald Tablets, but I believe that the Thoth, one of the characters from ancient Egypt, who had ruled over Egypt for quite some time. He calls himself an Atlantean priest king in some of this text, and he claims to be a son of Atlantis. And one thing about him, though, he traveled around the world to build and rebuild, which means at one point they were already built, civilizations. He said in the land of Kim, he told the people from the land of Kim, I was here to help rebuild them, help bring them back up to a high level of civilization, which means they had collapsed. This was after the Great Flood, because the opening scene is the Great Flood is receding, and now the temples are coming up out of the mud. What's interesting in that text, he says, after years and many years in the land of Kim, he told his crew to go around the world and duplicate what we did here. And now all of a sudden you see structures that are very similar popping up all over the world. But again, he calls himself a son of Atlantis. He has a team of people that help him rebuild Kem, ancient Kemet, which is now Egypt. And then they go out and spread out around the world and rebuild or build more similar structures and civilizations. So it kind of seems like Atlantis spread out around the planet. Could I be wrong? It's a possibility. But from what I've seen in all the places I've been and the similarities between the structures, I'm starting to believe that it's from my opinion, is accurate. Like Atlantis was a global civilization, potentially interplanetary civilization. These people were super advanced. If you want to even look at something interesting, just with human beings, the normal average human being, the Arabs were so advanced in the 1800s that scientists, not me, scientists said that if it wasn't for the Inquisitions, they would have been on the moon in the 1800s.
Yeah, I believe that for sure.
So we're talking about, man, the potential for advancement is immense. All you need is a culture that goes uninterrupted by any dogma or ideology for 100 years, and they can do incredible things.
Yep, no doubt. Yeah. Open-mindedness is the cure.
Yeah.
And for sure. That can take us into the future.
Mm-hmm.
The SARS Project, I mean, we've talked a lot about Egypt and whatnot. I wanted to get your thoughts on that and how that might, is that real? Is that not real? And how does it kind of tie into ancient history if it is?
Yeah, the synthetic aperture radar, SAR technology. When it first came out, a lot of people got really excited, and then what happened was some of the quote-unquote academics like Zahi Hawass out of Egypt instantaneously denounced it without even looking at the research, I don't think, and a couple other mainstream scientists as well. But again, they have their agenda to keep the status quo. What I love about Filippo Biondi and his team is they positioned this satellite over Egypt. They didn't have to get any approval from anybody, bypass all the rhetoric and payoffs that you have to do, because you got to do anything in Egypt, you got to pay everybody off. It's very corrupt, unfortunately. But they got this thing, and he modified the technology to emit a 10 gigahertz frequency at a 3 centimeter band, and it's able to go down to the Earth. It doesn't penetrate deeply as ground penetrating radar. That people say, well, you can't scan that deep with ground penetrating radar. Well, you can't. But what he did is he modified this technology to pick up minute vibrations underneath the Earth. So as these vibrations, as this beam resonates and these vibrations, it picks up all these minute vibrations and they resonate back up to the beam and go back to a supercomputer and get sorted out. It can create a rendering of what it believes is down there. So I believe the technology is sound. I believe that it's real. He did test it quite a few times before he utilized it there. And I believe that what we're seeing is evidence of what most people already knew existed. In my book, The Compendium of the Emerald Tablets, which is not just the Emerald Tablets, it's a lot of my own conjecture and information based on ancient history. On page 34, 5.5 years ago, I have a rendering that I put in the book of what the halls of Amenti would look like and what these structures would look like beneath the pyramid 5.5 years ago. And I go on to say that this goes on for miles. And then I put the quote from Herodotus in there. He had actually had a chance to see some of these underground structures and said it rivaled anything the Greeks could ever build. Even they rivaled the pyramids themselves, which is what I say as well. And I believe that these structures are down there. I've been beneath the bedrock of the Great Pyramid into the subterranean chamber, 65 meters beneath the bedrock. I've been to other areas underneath, like Saqqara, underground shafts and tunnels that go on for miles, like a labyrinth. There's other places down there that I go, and I'm going to take some people this year. They're not even tunnels. They call them avenues. They, meaning the archaeologists, call them avenues. They're so vast and broad, and they go on for miles. We have a super high-powered laser pointer that goes, I think it's 400 meters. You can't even see the end. And there's a tunnel that my main archaeologist that I go with, who lives, a homegrown Egyptian, that says there's a tunnel that goes from Giza all the way to the ziggurat of Ur in Iraq, hundreds of miles away. There's tunnels that he's taking me to this year because of what's happened that are under other pyramids that hardly anybody knows exist, and they're connected to the other pyramids all the way in Giza. So we're going to do this underground tunnel hiking when I get to Egypt in October, and I'm going to take some people down there to see some of the most incredible things they've never seen and probably will ever see down there. But these tunnels, these tunnels and underground structures, I believe, are real. In the Sumerian tablets, Enki talks about building his abode underground. He builds an entire kingdom beneath the ground. And this Shalbaba and the underworld and all these things, I'm starting to believe it might not be so multidimensional. It might be that it became mythological later on, but that there really was an underground civilization moving right beneath people's feet that they didn't even know existed in most cases. and that it was a very intricate and incredible civilization and society. When I went to South Korea about 4 years ago, I stayed in the Lotte Tower, the 5th tallest building in the world. When I went downstairs in the Lotte Tower, I saw an escalator going down beneath the ground. I said, what's down there? They said, oh, there's a whole city down there. I said, there's a city underneath this? And when I went down there was a full-blown city that went on for miles in both directions, underground in South Korea, high tech. And I was like, wow. So when this happened, it took me back to the thought of when I was in that underground city in South Korea. And I was just wondering, could this be a remnant of this new find? Could be a remnant of like what I went in South Korea, right? Not, of course, not all the LCD screens and everything, but just people living down there, having a full-blown life and civilization going on, protected, secluded, maybe oligarchs and elites or whatever, maybe these Anuna people, right? These Anunnaki Anuna people. But it could be that they were down there, and there's a LiDAR scan of some of the beneath the area where they found this structure, which shows energy still moving back and forth. So there could be energy moving. It could be part of an energy system or energy grid. It's so large down there that 64,000 people can fit in that structure that this SARS scan discovered. 64,000 people. Now they'd be tightly packed together.
Like on one level?
No, all stacked in a block, in a block format.
Okay.
But if you can put 64,000 bodies in that space, this is a pretty big space. And that's not even all of it. So we're talking about something supermassive, super megalithic. An entire Burj Khalifa can fit down there. Now imagine building it above ground. Now imagine building it beneath the ground. If you had to go to an engineer and say, I think more than one can fit because of the massive size, you could probably put 5 or 6 of them down there, stacked side by side. Imagine going and saying, I'd like to duplicate this. I'd like to duplicate this 4 or 5 times underground, and then put a pyramid on top. The developer's going to go, you're crazy. You see that? The developer's going to go, are you kidding me? No way. Now, if you want me to do it, give me $100 trillion in 20 years, and I might get it done. After seeing that structure, the pyramids themselves are insignificant to me. It's like the pyramid's nothing. What's beneath the ground is more significant by multitudes than the pyramid itself.
And in addition to being like living quarters and space for people and how would it contribute to the function of the pyramid, if at all? Like what was the purpose? Did it have a function?
We don't know, but there's a sarcophagi down there that some claim is emitting some type of energy. So again, when I go to the Serapeum, which I call Enki's Halls of Amenti, daringly, I take my Geiger counter, and there's sarcophagi in there. And when I put the Geiger counter by these sarcophagi, not only do they have higher than background level radiation, but there's a room there that I take people into that's locked. Tourists cannot go in there, but I get the key. And I take people on a private visit in there, and I show them this box. It's about, I'm 6'4", it's about 4.5 feet taller than me. It weighs over 1,000 tons, and on the lid, it has a radioactive symbol. Diorite.
Like ancient radioactive symbol?
No, it's a more modern. It's old, though. It looks like it might be 40 years old, the actual symbol itself. Yeah. Okay. It's really, really old. But somebody put it on there. So somebody knew before I even figured out to bring my Geiger counter, because I was doing that for years before we got into that room. We only got into that room for the first time 2 years ago. And I was like, wow, this is confirmation. This stuff is all radioactive. It's almost, when you're standing in that Serapeum and looking down the hall and you see the alcoves on the side with all the giant sarcophagi, it's like you're standing in a machine and those are batteries or something. It's really technological. And that one in the back is just mind-boggling. I mean, how could they even have positioned it in there? You can't move it in there. You can't lift it in there. You can't take a huge piece of stone and create it there because it would never fit. So they teleported it there or manifested it there. I don't know. The hypothesis is just through the roof. But in some way, they were able to get those in there, but they're all radioactive. So we're talking about high tech. We're talking about energy emitting. They knew what they were doing, man. It's not sure exactly what it was used for or why they did this, but it's part of a giant piece of a machine. Yeah.
You feel like potentially batteries, though? I mean, or it just
something that stores and then moves energy, or can transfer energy. Thoth talks about having the ability to transfer his consciousness into other bodies, and he would put bodies in some of these sarcophagi and leave them in there for 100 years while they rejuvenated. The thing is, these boxes, we can't open them. The only ones that are open are the ones that were open already.
With dynamite we used,
with dynamite, we had to blow them up to open them, but we couldn't take the lid off.
Right.
We couldn't do it.
Right. Right.
We had to blow them up.
Yeah.
And so the question is, if he had a body in it, well, what more secure way to store a body, first of all?
Yeah.
Nobody's getting in.
Right.
And then when you...
But no bodies have been found in any
Nobody's
of
have
these
been found in
things.
any of them. Not even the bull theory is a scam, too.
Right, right.
And when you wake up in that thing, how do you open it?
Right.
So somebody had technology to open the lid, and the lids were open, some of them. You know, so it's a big question mark.
Yeah, it is for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the accuracy and the precision of them, and it's like, why? You know, how did they get them down there? Like, I mean, there's so many mysteries. Why granite? Perfectly level. Yeah. Some of Chris Dunn's work down there was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Obviously back in the day. But
there's one I want to talk about real quick.
Yeah.
There's one that has Sabas, which are called stargates in ancient Egypt. Ancient Egyptian is called Saba as a stargate. It has Sabas all the way around. All 4 panels on the base. Now, the side of the base, the shorter part of the side that's facing the wall, it's warped like water. It's warped like this. This is diorite, crystal diorite, warped and like it's just been melted and then recoalesced solid again. No cracking, no chipping, just warped as if some weird type of exotic energy hit it. I'll send you a clip for this, by the way. I'll send you a picture of me touching it. The wall, when you turn around and look at the wall that's directly in front of it, the stone, the tunnel that it's in, or the alcove it's in, made of stone, there's a hole. It's a hole maybe about 5 feet in diameter, pointed directly at that same location. And then there's debris on the floor directly in front of that hole in the wall and the stone. Almost as if something energetic came through that stone, this is a hypothesis now, and hit this diorite box and then warped it in some kind of very strange way.
Like melted it almost?
Yeah. Yes, which is bizarre. I'll send you some images and some stuff about it so you can have it. That to me stood out the most. It was like, my brain couldn't even conceive how this could be done without cracking or breaking it.
Right. Yeah, but you're into the idea, the theory of nuclear power being used back in the day. I mean, radiation is found more than just background radiation, like 2, 3, 5, 10 times more than just like what normal radiation would be found. Is found throughout Egypt. Those mastabas, I think they're called mastabas. Those what Egyptologists say are tombs, are found all over the area, and tons of radiation is found there. I mean, like, 10, 15 times more than what normal radiation.
10 to 15 times more. When you put the Geiger counter up, all of a sudden it just goes, the rads go crazy. Yeah. And it's like, wow. And everyone I take and they see it, they're like blown away, like, oh man, this is crazy. Why would they use this, and why is this radiation this high? Yeah,
I had a scientist on this week, and we were talking about the vases, and he shares your theory that nuclear power was used at some point in the ancient past by some civilization that was lost, and he sees the mastabas as nuclear waste dumps, basically. And that's why the radiation down there is so extreme. But what other evidence do you see around ancient Egypt for evidence of nuclear power being used?
I went to a place called Elephantine Island. Elephantine Island. We were out there. I think we were on the way to we stopped there on the way to on boats. We took everybody on boats. We were going to Philae Temple, and we stopped off at Elephantine Island. And at Elephantine Island, there's a temple, an ancient temple, and underneath that temple, there is this location where they used to store the Ark of the Covenant. And the pedestal that it used to sit on is still there. You can touch it. This is a private visit only. The average tourist cannot go down there. And in this room, they have these giant megalithic stones. I'm talking massive stones, but they're the stones that are designed to repel the energy from the Ark. So the Ark was hiding and protecting the energy signature. And it was said that the signature would give, if you can detect the energy signature, you could find it. So somebody had a device that can find the signature of this device, and it was radioactive. And this was designed to keep it in. Now, the Ark was moved. It's not in there now, but it was moved to a different place on this island, and it was buried again somewhere else with the same type of stones to hide the signature. Germany has a team there for the last 20 years, digging 7 days a week, looking for the Ark in this other area, this other rock-covered chamber. 20 years straight, out of their own pocket, they're spending the money. 20 years they've been looking. Now, there's a giant temple on the surface on L-15 that you can clearly see. It's, first of all, it's made of one-piece megalithic stones. I'm talking about 1,000, 2,000 ton stones blown apart and laying down the entire temple. Something energetic came in and just smashed it and dropped the whole thing and left one part of the massive megalithic door still standing, but everything else just blown to pieces. And there's also another, there you go, that was going to show you that right there. That right there is a one-piece
That's crazy,
box.
Man. Granite, right?
Granite.
Yeah.
It's megalithic. It's cut to precision, and it used to hold an ark. An ark would fit in there as well. All right? So that also held an ark. And so there was many, people think there's only one ark. There was many arks. And these arks had power in them. They were, in my opinion, potentially electric or radioactive or a combination of both. They used radioactivity to generate electricity, which is why you had to wear certain clothes. If you read your religious texts, you had to wear certain clothes and rubber boots to handle them. But this particular thing is just one of the things that's just laying there. And the rest of the other parts that are laying to the side, to the left side, are all remnants of the structure that was literally blown up by some type of energetic weapon, maybe, potentially. It couldn't have been just an earthquake because the way that the stones are thrown and strewn around, they had gained some space. An earthquake will break things and they'll smash and break into pieces and collapse down. This is evidence of pieces that should be further in the back towards the front. So something hit and threw these stones, almost like Pumapunku in Bolivia.
Right. I was thinking that as you were talking.
Yes.
Yeah.
Same exact thing. Yeah. We're talking about evidence of an ancient war that happened between these beings with this advanced weaponry and also, of course, in my opinion, radioactive type weapons. In Giza, sometimes you can pull up balls of glass out of the sand. That's evidence of 3,000 degree. There you go. So you can see perfect image. You can see this. You can see this structure, how it's blown forward. Okay, it's just mind blowing. And that thing, for it to be tossed around like a, like a toy,
right?
That's just telling how strong this, whatever it was that came through here. And you can see the remnants of the door, the entryway up front, standing up still. That used to be the door. That whole thing had a roof and a cover and everything. Completely destroyed. Something came from the back and pushed everything towards the front and blew everything out. So, energetic. Now, again, if you put your hands down in the sand, sometimes you pull up balls of glass. That's 3,000 degree weapon fire. If you look at Mohenjo-Daro in the Indus Valley, the buildings there turned to glass. The bodies are still in the street holding hands till this very day. Mohenjo-Daro, Pakistan. The bodies are in the streets, no evidence of scavenging, and guess what happens to the bodies? Higher than background level radiation. Guess what happened to the buildings they lived in? Higher than background level radiation. So we're talking about evidence of an ancient nuclear war, potentially. And this can be found in other places as well, where we see that in some way, these people had weapons that utilize radioactivity. Yeah.
Wild.
So that's Mohenjo-Daro, a place where the bodies are still laying there. And they're radioactive still today.
Yeah, I was talking. Yeah, when we were talking about that the theory also includes that a lot of the, like when you dig up a lot of the ancient stuff that was buried, like pottery and even graves of people and stuff, that's where famine would begin, and the famine and people dying and whatnot. But it wasn't because of ghosts and spirits and apparitions and curses. Yeah, it was because of radiation.
That's exactly what it was.
Yeah,
the same thing started happening when they started finding dinosaur bones. They started realizing that the dinosaur bone, what we found out more recently, that the dinosaur bones were radioactive. But people would take these dinosaur bones home. Look at this big bone. I got these bones to decorate their house with it, their huts or whatever. They were radioactive. So they were getting sick. It was the bones that were radioactive. So at most museums, the bones are painted with lead to keep the radioactivity in.
Okay. Yeah, you got to bring your Geiger. I'm freaking out about the vases now. I'm thinking, like, how long do I have to live here? Yeah, and apparently, I guess it's like anecdotal evidence and maybe not totally proven, but that a lot of the Egyptologists and people that work in that area and excavating ancient objects tend to have a higher rate of cancer and a younger, like a lower, a higher mortality rate. And so
higher mortality rate, cancers, weird cancers developing, and a lot of them get these weird illnesses, which are predominantly from ancient bacteria and ancient viruses from opening these things, and no mask on, just raw hands, I'm like, Put on a suit, put on some gloves,
right?
Put on like, an actual hazmat mask or something, but they go in raw and they inhale all that stuff. The curse of it was Tutankhamun's tomb. The curse of Tutankhamun's tomb, I should say, was that of course anyone who opens this is going to die, and most of them people died. But they found it was from this ancient bacteria, I believe, is what killed everybody.
Yeah, on Tutankhamun's tomb, I saw on your X channel there was a post from maybe a month or so ago about there was an X-ray taken of his helmet, of his mask, and it was like maybe it was in a couple of different parts, and that was a surprise to historians and archaeologists.
That it wasn't just one piece.
Yeah,
that in some way it was so finely put together that you almost couldn't even detect the point in which they fused the pieces.
There it is, yeah.
I mean, that is just mind-boggling welding, or what is that?
Right.
I mean, the technology to do that and fuse that in those times, we would need electricity to do something like this, number one. We have to have a power tool. We need a power tool. Maybe if it ran on gas or electricity, I don't know, but we would need a power tool. We need something to create a very hot tip, and we need some way to mold or to mesh the two pieces together so seamlessly that you could barely even see it was multiple pieces unless you did an X-ray. That's wild.
It is wild. Yeah. And where did they get the gold? Like that's why one of the reasons why I love Jimmy's, Atlantis Rishat theory so much is that Atlantis was said to be, they had so much gold, just gold, and and that you got Egypt forming, and it's not that much of a stretch to imagine, people navigating the desert and going to this ancient city and finding all of this gold and bringing it back and making it into whatever, all of this stuff, decorating the entire city. So,
well, I think one important thing about gold is the people of the day were taught that gold was great for decoration. But the true meaning by the elites behind the scenes that were directing them to acquire this gold was technological. Now, we found a lot of electric gold plated pieces and trinkets, which we know they had electricity to electric gold plate. So electricity came from somewhere, right? Baghdad batteries or wherever they use, we don't know. But on the other side, to create technology like the tools needed to build these megalithic structures and these underground cities, you would need gold, because gold is great for transmitting electricity from point A to point B. It's great for microprocessors. It's great for reflecting radiation. It has a lot of technological uses as well as a lot of health uses as well. So you could take gold and make it into a powder and make it into an aurum. You can, some people drink that and they say it's good for the body, good for the brain. But I think that the people of the day were taught to adorn themselves with the gold in honor of the gods, so they continue to labor for the gods and go get this gold for the gods who are just regular people who had more knowledge. But I think that's what it was all about. But gold for them was technological. For the regular person, it was, it was just for looks. Yeah.
Well, how you feeling? Okay, we got about an hour till you got to leave. Are you cool just talking through?
Yeah, let's go, man.
Cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm good too. I don't.
We here, man.
Yeah, let's do it. Cool. Yeah, I mean, with an hour left, I kind of got just maybe some random questions. Everybody, loves to hear your thoughts on just random, rapid fire kind of questions. So. I guess one of the things that, or one of the guests that you had on recently that was popular on your show, I saw you got it went totally viral, was Terrence Howard.
Oh, yeah.
And I watched his episode on Joe Rogan and was just totally mind blown. I think everybody was. I mean, it went super viral, and then they had that
mathematician.
Harvey Weinstein guy came on and kind of debunked him and.
Right.
I felt like Harvey, I don't want to get into it, but he was kind of a dick. I mean,
he was.
Yeah,
no way to treat a grown man.
Right.
He treated him like he was some type of a kid.
He did.
Yeah. I was like,
it was bad.
That was embarrassing.
Yeah, it was. I mean, for Harvey, it was embarrassing. To me, it was like
it made him look bad.
Yeah.
He didn't look like a solid human being.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But I respect Terrence and his mind and the way that he thinks and what he's been able to kind of come up with in terms of like his understanding of reality.
Mm-hmm.
What have been some of the things that you took away from him that you guys talked about that were important or meaningful to you?
From him, I got the understanding now that you take that flower of life symbol and you make it into a three-dimensional structure every time. And through the three-dimensional version of the flower of life, you get so many incredible things. We're at the point where the circles intersect in the three-dimensional version of the flower of life, you can fit tetrahedrons, three-dimensional tetrahedrons inside of, as a matter of fact, you can fit 64 tetrahedrons into the flower of life in the three-dimensional format. Where those points of the tetrahedron meet towards the center, it creates something called the vector equilibrium. And in the center of that, you have unparalleled, unlimited energy. You have 0-point energy there. The flower of life is the source of 0-point energy, and it exists at every Planck unit in space-time throughout the entire known universe, even within us. At every point that exists, there is energy, unparalleled energy. But we haven't even fully tapped in. Well, some people have tapped into it. Of course, their inventions have been suppressed. He also has developed a way to take the linchpin portion of the flower of life and create these flying devices that can also air bond. And at first, people were saying, man, this is rendered images, rendered videos. This thing will never exist. Well, we have one that's actually flying, and I have the video clip of it. Of one that we gave the blueprint to an inventor who actually made it, and it flies, and it's incredible. And now we're working on trying to develop, or he's working on trying to develop one that bonds in the air. So when you bond these, it's like building a flower of life in the air. It has more power, more lifting power, more speed. It's a new version. It's called tangential flight. And this is one of the most incredible things I've seen. It can literally fly up on the wall and just stick to the wall and stay there. It can go to the ceiling and stay like this. It could be any position you need it to be, and it can do it. And it has lifting capability. If you've got 3 or 4 of these things, I can see how you can lift an obelisk. You know, massive ones. You can lift an obelisk with equal points of pressure to keep it from snapping and breaking. So many functions and possibilities with this technology. To me, it outdoes drones. And so I learned from him, always push the envelope. Don't care about what people say about you. Come up with your own versions or ideas and concepts of reality. And, don't be afraid to break the mold, which is what he's not afraid to do. And a lot of his science, it doesn't flow with, there goes one there. It doesn't flow with the conventional version of science, but it's revolutionary thinking. And the only way that we've advanced in science to get to where we are today is by pushing the envelope, by asking questions and looking for answers, or pushing or trying to break actual theories. The majority of this stuff is theories, right? I mean, very few of these things are actually proven,
right?
Like total rock solid.
It's theory, not fact.
Theory, not fact. And so when somebody comes on and starts saying, you're wrong, well, how can you say you're wrong? Prove that I'm wrong. So I love that he did that. He just came on PBD podcast. They brought a quantum physicist in from NASA, and the quantum physicist agreed with him on most counts and said, oh, he's right. Oh, he's right. Oh my God, that's true. Oh, yep, he's right there too. Which really venerated him just recently, and that went viral.
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah, there's a vase that we've done some research on. It's called the OG vase. It's this red granite vase, and the flower of life was found within this vase.
Wow.
And when you look at it, its measurements are made in royal fingers, which is 18.7 millimeters. It was discovered by Isaac Newton as an ancient system of metrology. But it was, you get, like, for the mouth opening, you get pi royal fingers, so 18.7 times pi. You get that as the dimension. You get phi. You get all these different kind of geometric measurements appear in this vase. And I was looking at it, and it was, the height of it was 6.4 royal fingers tall. And I'm thinking, well, what? That doesn't make any sense. It's like, it's the only measurement that doesn't really correspond to some sacred geometry type number. And then I realized 64 is like the key number for the flower of life.
Yes.
And so it was like this big aha moment.
Tetrahedron.
Right.
I just said that a minute ago.
Right. Exactly. That's what made me think of it. Yeah. So, I mean, it was a mind-blowing kind of revelation, and we made a short about it. And this was kind of like early on in the Vase investigation, but super cool. Yeah. I really respect the way that he thinks. And, you know, I mean, he's talking about stuff that like science is just kind of closing their mind to. And I apologize, I said Harvey Weinstein. So a couple of other things, as long as I'm going rapid fire. Have you heard of Ashton Forbes?
Ashton Forbes. Bring me a little update on that.
He's the guy who's doing all the research on MH370, and he's looking at, you said 0-point energy, so he's the one who's looking at 0-point energy, and his theory is that the MH370, flight MH370 disappeared over and is said to have like just disappeared in the Indian Ocean somewhere.
For years, they haven't found it yet.
Can't find it, right. And it's like planes don't just disappear. There's a video that came out that he thinks is real. I had him on the show. And it's these 3 orbs that begin to orbit a plane, and all of a sudden the plane disappears. And his thinking is that this is technology that we now have, and that the U.S. government has this technology. This video is real. It's not a hoax. He thinks he knows who leaked it. This guy named Edward C. Lynn, who actually was then tried for like war crimes and espionage and whatnot.
Man.
And
I believe it now.
Right, right.
I believe it now.
Right.
Any discrediting? Oh yeah, okay.
Exactly.
They got it.
And then he changed his name 2 months ago after Ashton like found the guy and put his name out there. He changed his name.
Oh wow.
Legally, he won't talk to. He won't like come out and go say anything. But I wasn't sure if you're.
Well, I could tell you some from my. I don't know specifically about that. Right?
Here it is.
But let me see the video real quick.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what I do know in terms of private space and private aerospace technology. Oh, I see the orb circling it. It's like it's trying to create a stable portal. Okay, now they've isolated it. Yeah. Wow. This is incredible footage. Yeah. They're probably trying to create something called an X point. Boom.
It's gone.
There it goes. Yeah. I believe it.
Yeah.
So NASA discovered something called X points around the Earth. X points. And these X points are diffusion regions where magnetic fields crisscross, and they open naturally forming portals throughout the day and night randomly, right? They claim that they've been researching these things, and some of these portals lead towards the moon, the sun, and even to other planets within the solar system. But they can't control them. They can't control when they appear, when they disappear. They can't control, how to keep them stable and open and these things. But they are naturally forming portals around Earth. Now, of course, they're going to tell us they don't understand them and they can't open them and close them and so forth. But what you just showed me, maybe some form of government, 1 3-letter agency through a black budget program or in cooperation with maybe one of these private aerospace corporations has developed a way to create these X points on the drop of a dime, right? On call. These portal technology is a real thing. They've been experimenting at CERN, at the LHC, the Large Hadron Collider in Switzerland, smashing particles together. And there goes the X points right there. You see that? Okay, that's from NASA. That's from the space agencies. So these X points, there's one X right there, which is several Lagrange points away from Earth. So these things are not just by the planet itself; they're all over the place. And the Large Hadron Collider, when you begin to collide these particles, they're creating microscopic black holes. Now, at first, everyone was afraid. It's like, will the Earth get sucked into one of these things? But come to find out, they do evaporate very quickly. But because of the experiments, what are they trying to obtain? They're trying to learn how to make stable black holes or stable wormholes. And could it be that they've already learned how to do that? I went to a private space meeting with TS clearance in 2018, the Space Symposium in Colorado. And at that space symposium for private space, because I have a tech company, is why I went. I was in a room with TS qualified, TS labeled, top secret labeled private space company head execs. And in that meeting, they were talking about the technology that, they have and how advanced it is. And what I can say is in that meeting, I can tell you this part, they're 300 years ahead of us. 300. Forget 50 years ahead. Forget 100 years ahead. Whatever you can imagine, whatever you can literally imagine in your mind, they've already achieved it or been testing it. So something like this that you just showed me with the flight, MH40, was it MH40?
MH370.
MH370, I'm sorry. Opening up a portal and making it vanish, doesn't even surprise me. After what I heard and what I was told in that meeting, it doesn't surprise me at all. They've already sent information. Somebody, I can't say who, has already sent information back in time, data back in time. There's so much going on, man. Like we have a real sci-fi world, like a movie going on behind this mundane existence, except the majority of the people will never know about it.
What do you think of some of the recent UAP activity? I mean, I know it's in your mind and in my mind, it's a combination of all these things, of all these different types of possibilities as to what it could be and what it is. I mean, it's all of it kind of happening at once in different levels, but do you think like, is most of it, do you feel like U.S. government technology, is most of it like straight up extraterrestrial? Like some of the more interesting stuff that we've seen recently come out in the news, I'm just kind of curious your thoughts on the phenomenon in general. I still feel like it's a combination. I do think that some of these fast movers are technology that we've created ourselves, especially a lot of these drone sightings over New Jersey and so forth. It's all just us experimenting and testing out new technologies. Also getting the public's reaction and judging as part of the experiment as well. Let's see what they do. Let's see how they react. Are they going to be afraid? Are they going to run through the streets, or are they going to call the cop? Just to experiment and see the psychological effect of seeing things that they can't explain. But also to take control of the narrative and to be able to show these things in a light where they're saying that they exist, but also denying that they are there. It's a weird in-between that the government's in, right? And the reason why I believe that we may be facing another Gulf of Tonkin incident. The Gulf of Tonkin incident happened when it was a catalyst to start the Vietnamese War. They faked an attack on one of our ships, one of our Navy vessels. It never happened. It came out years later. But unfortunately, hundreds of thousands of men had to die over the 20-year war over a lie, a false flag. I believe that some of the manipulation of this UAP idea or understanding is to create a potential future false flag where now they can say, guys, we have to raise money for space weapons, and we need $100 trillion of your good hard-earned money. And we're going to direct it over here. No more worrying about what happened to this $5 trillion and $10 trillion that's missing from the budget. We're going to tell you where it's at. We're going to make space weapons with it. Now, they'll take that money, those trillions, and they'll give it to private corporations. So there'll be no FOIAs. We'll have no way of knowing what they've worked on. And then they will chop up the money through the execs and the board of directors and other people who are involved in giving out the contracts. They'll chop up a lot of money. Some of the money will make its way into the project. Some projects will work and maybe produce some small tech, but the rest of it will go into developmental tech and R&D that will never see the light of day. And then they'll go back and get another $100 trillion when that runs out. And they'll do that over and over again, milking the people of the world for their hard-earned money to create these experimental weapons while they chop up the pie and put it in their pockets. So that's what it's really all about. It's a big money grab. It's one of the biggest money grabs that exist. They're doing it already with aerospace, with fighter jets. Lockheed Martin will go to the government and get $10 billion to make a new experimental jet. The jet will go on for 4 or 5 years of development, 10 years of development. Oh, we didn't quite get it right. We need another 10 billion. They'll send them another 10 billion. Meanwhile, they're chopping up this cash. They're all getting paid crazy salaries and everything else, bonuses and everything. The people giving out the contracts, getting the submarine money. And then, you know what? This just ain't going to work out. We'll try another one. And they'll move on to the next model. And they just do this over and over and over and again. Now, there are real UFOs. There are real UFOs out there that are still watching us and watching this fiasco go on, watching this reality show. Right now, we're on episode 2025. Okay? And they're watching us, and they're observing us, and they are protecting us in some way. You know, when all these UFOs started showing up at missile silos, when you have a guy get on national TV and testify before Congress, a former
person in the military that had the codes to arm the nukes, one of the hardest jobs to get in the world, and says the UFO showed up at the silo. They call them a flight. Showed up at the flight and deactivated the nukes, and he had to go and reactivate them. You have to listen to this man.
You have to.
Right.
I had Mario Woods on the show a couple of weeks ago. I mean, he was that guy at the nuclear silo who got abducted by a massive ship, like a massive craft. And I mean, he's the most believable person that you could ever talk to about this topic. I mean, he hadn't talked to his ex-wife in like 3 decades. And nobody else was able to prove the existence of Michael Johnson, the other guy that was abducted with Mario Woods. And I contacted his ex-wife. She lives in Tampa, and I'm like, "Do you remember a Mario Johnson, or do you remember a Michael Johnson? Was he ever at your house?" And she replied, "Hell yeah, he was at my house. I remember him, and I remember the story, and that Mario was very shaken up by this, as was Michael, and she remembered the whole thing." So it was like, and I mean, this guy's testified to Arrow. He's testified to various members of Congress. He's going to testify in front of Congress eventually. I mean, super believable. And it's like, these are the people that are in charge with our nuclear facilities, nuclear weapons. I mean, he's completely mentally capable and sane. And I'd encourage you to watch that episode. It is wild.
I'll check it out right away.
It is wild.
Yeah. You're not just going to walk in and go, "Hey guys, I want to get the codes to these nukes, and this is my new job."
Yeah.
The vetting process just to get that job has to be insane.
Right.
The psychological battery test that you have to take to get that job has to be insane.
Yep.
You don't just walk in and get that job. So when that guy says this happened, they hacked the nukes, deactivated the codes in broad daylight, you got to listen. So there are UFOs. They're coming here. I believe they're protecting us in some way, shape, or form. They're stopping us from destroying ourselves. I don't think they really care too much about us destroying us. I think they care about the planet more than us. This planet is an absolute gold mine. It's an absolute paradise in the middle of the outer edge regions of the Milky Way galaxy. It's an oasis of sorts. It's a great place for a stop off while you're traveling. If you're traveling deep space, you get resources, refuel, relax, whatever they do, you know? And I think there's so many resources here and so many life forms here. It's utterly important that we don't destroy that on a global scale.
Right. Totally agree. Yeah. Yeah, there's always this debate on whether or not these extraterrestrials are peaceful or not, if they want to hurt us or if they love us. And I mean, for me, after it finally hit me, like probably 3 or 4 months ago, I'm a contemplator. I constantly think about these types of, off the wall questions. And it's like, I think they've transcended war and peace. Like, I think they're at peace. I think they've transcended, unhappiness and happiness, and they're at peace. I think that ultimately what they want is balance and stability, and they view us as just coming out of the Stone Age.
Yeah, we're babies.
We're babies.
We're trying to learn how to crawl right now.
Right. But I don't think it's one or the other. Like they either hate us or they love us. Like I think they've transcended judgment is really what they've transcended, and the mental, the fact, I think they've recognized that they are life itself, and that they're not their minds, and that judgment comes from their minds, and good and bad and right and wrong and all of that comes from their minds, and that they're living on a higher, they've evolved from an emotional intelligence standpoint so far past what we understand as a species right now, that this good bad thing just doesn't exist to them, and they're just there. Yeah, they're there, and they're giving us a chance to develop and grow and mature, and we'll get a seat at the table when we get to a certain level of consciousness. Exactly. That's what they're waiting on. I think that's what it's all about. But until then, they're observing. They're the watchers. They're talked about in the ancient texts, the watchers. And I think that in the past, in the Sumerian tablets, they violated a protocol. They violated this. They have it on Star Trek. It's like when you go and engage a less advanced race of people. They kind of have this term for it. I forget what the term is, but they say that you can't violate that that protocol. And I think that in the past it did get violated, and in some way we did get engaged by these people, which altered our trajectory consciously and technologically as well. But I think since then, there has been this other higher level of evolution, and maybe some of those who had been held accountable have been banished from interfering with us. In one of the Sumerian tablets, one of these Anuna say,
that we're going to have to answer to the creator of all for what we did here. That's like so telling. Like they knew that they weren't gods, even though they masqueraded as gods, had people praying to them and everything else, but they would have to answer to a higher power. And so prime directive, that's what it's called. So I believe that maybe they violated a prime directive and maybe they have been punished or will be punished for that. But because since then, since they left, there have been no more occurrences or engagement on that level from these people. And I think that we are being watched and in some way, like I said, protected. And at some point, we will maybe meet our star brothers, but we have a lot of work to do on ourselves.
No doubt.
Yeah.
We got a lot of inward looking to do.
Yeah.
So in this country, I mean, we talk about the government, we talk about the information that they give us, the disinformation that they give us. I hear so many people talking about freedom and fighting for freedom and all of that. What is your definition of freedom? And do you think that we are as free as we say that we are within this country? Are we free? And what's your definition of freedom?
Yeah, I don't think that we're free in this country. We have the illusion of freedom. This country is really good at the illusion process. They give you this illusion of this freedom where you believe that you're free and you have all these opportunities. Now, we do have opportunities. Don't get me wrong. We have great opportunities here. I'm not saying we don't have opportunities. And I'm not saying that I can't go outside and jump in a car and drive to the beach and go sit on the beach for a few hours. I have that level of freedom. But overall, there is this umbrella above us that's keeping us inside of this system to where there's certain things we can and can't do, certain lines, invisible lines called boundaries you can cross and can't cross. And if you do, you have to register and do this and do that. There's certain matrices that exist, like the financial matrix that exists here. So even though they're going to replace most of our jobs with AI, you still have to pay your bills. That's the matrix. If you buy a vehicle or buy a house, you still got to pay them these taxes. Your house can be taken away by eminent domain at any moment if they decide to take it away. I know somebody that happened to. So you don't really even own your house. You have the illusion of owning a house. When you go to school, they put you in a prison setting and they rob you of all your creativity and program you to become a robot for the system to do the labor so that they can churn you and get the revenue out of you so they can monetize you and turn that into their riches. They intend to create heaven here on earth and let you wait to die so you can live. So there's this illusion of this level of freedom, but what I see as freedom is just understanding what is this matrix and like what are they doing and what their objective is. Now, within their objective and within their lawmaking process, they leave breadcrumbs as to how they navigate these laws and rules. It's our job to learn what they know so that we can navigate it. Donald Trump, for example, doesn't pay a lot of money in taxes. He's mastered the navigation of the financial tax laws. So we should emulate him. We should emulate what he did in that process to pay less taxes. So they always have these loopholes. Like he said when he was in a debate, he had said that, to Hillary Clinton, the last debate when she was running as well, that you and your constituents use the same exact benefits of the tax laws that I am privy to. So they all know that these things exist. And I'm not a political fan of anybody. I don't believe in Democrat or Republican. Yeah, I believe that, both the lamb is led to slaughter when you walk down that voting line. That's why when I get to the end of the line, I write my name on the ballot. I take my own sovereignty. So that's where my freedom lies. Every 4 years, and I post my ballot online. If anybody wants to go look it up, go back to the voting dates and go to my Instagram account, and you'll see my voting ballot right there with my name on it as a write-in name to say, I am taking control of myself. I am my own president. I'm in control of my life and my family's life, and I'm going to make decisions for myself. And if everyone took that mindset, this world would change overnight. If everyone said, I'm the president of my community and my family, and now you're a president, so what does the president do? A president has initiatives. A president has action it has to take. I'm going to clean this community up. I'm going to put programs together for the children. I'm going to change the way that the teaching is going on. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. If we all took that aspect of consciousness and went out and did a presidential duty, there you go. Thank you, sir. But he's good, man. Mm-hmm. There's my ballot. There's my presidential ballot with my name on it. No lies.
Ryan's the best, man.
Yeah, I have the receipts, buddy. Thank you. And so if we took that mindset, imagine instead of sitting in your community waiting for it to change, you go out and be the change. Instead of complaining about problems that exist, you become the problem solver. That's what it means to become your own president. And that's why I take that role every 4 years. I renew myself.
Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's super inspiring.
Thank you.
And it's an inward look as opposed to an outward look. It's a leader as opposed to a follower.
Exactly.
It's, love it. I've thought about politics a lot and just kind of the state that it's in. And I ultimately want to run for president one day when I'm older. It's like one of those lifelong goals.
That'd be great.
That I've
You
had.
need somebody on the inside, man.
We do.
With this.
Yeah.
You know, a higher level.
It's going to be the purple party, though. It's
I love it.
It's red and blue combined make purple.
Nice.
And it's going to be about more about it's going to be different than what we do today.
You have my support.
Yeah,
that's
cool,
for sure.
Cool. Appreciate it. Yeah, I got a few years. You know, I'm looking at like a 2044 kind of a time. In my own mind, I got a lot of stuff to do before that. But you know, creating a voice and having a podcast, I think, is a step.
Absolutely.
In that. So
yeah.
But yeah, that's super inspiring, man, what you're talking about. And the way that you kind of live your life and the way that you think about reality, it's very inspiring. And it leads to authentic, genuine connections with people. And I think one of those things that people don't really know about you or see about you is how real you are, how genuine you are, how authentic you are. And like the connections that you have with the people around you in your life are very real and just you know, you can feel it. I mentioned this last night, but at the Consciousness Awards last year, I mean, you can feel that connection that you have with the people that attend that event, and it's like it's all love, it's all peace, it's all love. I mean, it's good times. It's good times.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
for sure.
I feel the same about you, man. You and your team have great vibes, great energy.
Yep.
Everyone's very accommodating, and everyone really is just seeking knowledge.
Right.
But they're also not seeking, but they're also giving.
Yep.
So it's like a two-way conversation every time I'm talking with you or your team. It's great to be and refreshing to be around people that can share, you know, a disbursement of knowledge versus one person just giving it out all the time.
Right.
You know?
Right. Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, cool, man. Yeah, a couple maybe just random questions to finish up. I don't want to keep you too late. I know you got a plane to get to, but I wanted to ask you about a couple of just random things that are maybe current and happening right now in addition to what we've talked about. So the the Epstein Files. I know you've made a couple of posts about that. You got some thoughts about that.
Yeah.
I compare that to what's happening with P. Diddy right now and like Epstein and how like, are we ever going to get any answers on Epstein? And meanwhile, P. Diddy is like everything's being aired out there. Nobody cares who gets, you know, whose information comes out. And it's like, is it because you've got these high-powered, profile political people in the UK government and the United States government and American business, and meanwhile you got a rapper and like it's okay to just air all his shit out there, but Epstein, we don't know anything about it. We still haven't gotten anything out of that.
And they still have Ghislaine Maxwell still locked up. She hasn't. There's no information coming out.
Right.
I think that P. Diddy was a very small version, a fractal of Epstein. Epstein was on a much larger scale, a much more grander scale, and he had dirt on people that literally run the world. And that's the reason why he was unalived by accident on purpose, and the cameras went out and everything else. So, the people if people knew who these people really were, I think the world would go on a riot. Yeah. Things would shut down. You know, and they know that they can destroy, the release of that list can destroy or bring down an economy, destroy the GDP of a country. That's why we haven't seen it. Yeah.
You think we're ever going to see it?
No, we'll never see the real list. They gave us a toy of a list a month ago, whatever it was, just a bunch of bullcrap, a bunch of illegible handwriting on some old drafts, but they know the real names.
Just to shut people up.
Just to shut people up. Yeah, nothing was released. Nothing new. There was no new information on that at all. Nothing telling. Nothing that had any inkling of being a real account of someone doing anything. So, but the real list and the real people, it's never going to come out, unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's terrible either way. I'm not trying to, take sides or stand up for, either of those guys. I mean, there's some awful things that are happening. I mean, you're talking about kids, I think, in both situations being involved. But it's just crazy that that is being suppressed. And it's like, how do we get to the truth. Will we ever get to the truth? Probably not. It's like one of those things where are we free? I mean, if we were free, then the transparency, be a transparent government, you know, tell us what's really going on. And,
Look, the press should have open access to that information, and it should have already distributed to us.
Right.
Already. It should have been a long time ago.
Right.
But the way that the government is set up, they have us believing that we have to obey and listen to them and they control us, when it's really the opposite. It's really the other way around. We are supposed to be able to control them and tell them what to do, and they're working for us as servants. But they flipped it in our brains, and we've acquiesced to that.
Yeah. What's the Vatican hiding?
Oh, man, the Vatican has a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
The Vatican has 5 miles of underground archives. Yeah. Paul Anthony Wallace, best-selling author, good friend of mine, 33-year former archdeacon in the church, opened churches worldwide, taught pastors how to run their churches. I've done podcasts with him. We have a podcast called Bible Study, where we really dig deep into the biblical text and break it down and go into translations and everything else to pull out what the words really mean. And so I've been able to get a lot of information, have private conversations with him, and also through a Knights Templar, Timothy Hogan.
Yeah, I had him on the show.
He's incredible.
Yeah, he's a great,
just incredible wealth of knowledge, man.
Yeah.
He's mind-bending, phenomenal. And so I've come to the conclusion now, based on my research and based on what I've known, talking to several people that have some insight, that they are hoarding a lot of knowledge. The Library of Alexandria was a book heist. Yes, there was fire. Yes, there was books burning. It was a distraction for the largest knowledge heist in history. And that knowledge is located predominantly, 2/3 of that knowledge is located in the Vatican. They have down there bodies, bones of bodies that are non-humanoid. They have some of the most ancient texts and books and papyruses and scriptures and everything else that will never see the light of day. They have information about technologies and some technology down there as well. There's so much information down there that it would take literally probably 100 years to even get to the beginning phase of like round one of the first few rows. They've hoarded so much information in the utilizing their power and authority to suppress advancements in mankind's mind and technology. During the papal inquisitions, over the course of 700 years, under the order of the popes, they killed, murdered, and tortured over 80 million people. And they're proud of it because they have the museums where you can go see the tools that they use, the torture tools. The Pope's spear, which would be like this pear-shaped device they were put inside of a woman's private parts and spring-loaded, exploded inside of her. The spire, which was shaped like a pyramid with this steel rod going up, and they would raise a man up and roll him down on it through his anus, up and down, up and down. This is how they converted people into the Catholicism and Christianity. It was by torture. And they would go to an indigenous area, take the chief and say, you guys are going to do this and do that. You're going to follow us. You're going to pray to this God. And if they didn't, they would just torture him or burn him to death. And then everyone says, okay, we're in. But they did this over and over again. And everywhere they went, all these cultures, they just took all of their information, their books, their records, their writings, their knowledge, their technology, and suppressed all of it. It's a treasure trove time capsule down there. Yeah, when somebody finally gets into that in the future, like they get into the underground caverns of the ancient Roman Vatican, they're going to be blown away with that time capsule. Yeah.
What about St. Patrick and St. Patrick's Day? The true history behind that.
Oh, yeah. St. Patrick is, I don't celebrate that day. I mean, it's he was really all about killing these dwarfs. These black dwarfs, I forget the name of them now. They were called the, what's the name of those people again? They have a specific name.
Yeah, Ryan will find it.
Yeah.
I'm blanking on it as well. Yeah. But
look up the name of the dwarfs that, the people that St. Patrick had killed to move off the land. But he's been celebrated.
They called them the snakes, I guess, right? He was eradicating
the snakes. But the people had a specific name. But he said he was eradicating the snakes of the land. And those were the indigenous people of the land,
right?
To make way for them. And he's been celebrated all this time. And in this dark move that he made against humanity to move these people out, kill them off, and allow other people to move in on their land. It's a travesty what he did. And it's very dark, and people have no idea. And they celebrate every year St. Patrick's Day. They go to parties, they put on the green, they put on the clovers and everything else, but it's so dark behind the truth. The truth behind it is so dark, it'll make you puke. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, him, of course, he was the one appointed by the church, but this is the church. This is the way that the church has conducted themselves with inquisition and witch hunts and eradicating. I mean, it's genocide.
It's genocide.
It's 2,000 years of genocide.
Absolute genocide. If a woman was a healer, there you go, the snakes. Yeah.
Druids.
The Druids. There you go. Thank you.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to give them the respect of their name, the Druids.
Yeah.
But if a woman in a village had healing knowledge through herbs, right, or touch, all of a sudden she was a witch, and the church said she's got to be killed.
Right.
They burn her at the stake.
Right.
I mean, this notion of the love of this religion going around the world to enlighten people is just not what happened. Everyone's following that religion. Everyone, but a lot of people are following that religion based on ancient fears from their ancestors who were forced into it, and now everybody's been given the programming code over and over again. And so, we don't know the original source. We weren't there. But when you go to history, you find out, oh, this is how it happened. You think, oh, my grandmother told me this is what I have to do, so I do it. It must be nice. When you go into the source, you found out how bloody and gory and disgusting it was, and then you go, wow, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like a loving situation to me.
No, it's not, and it's and it even goes to 16th century with Spain and South America with the Maya, and like just genocide across 80 million people, 100 million people,
the American Holocaust, 111 million indigenous people killed over the course of 70 years.
Yeah,
that's mind blowing. Nobody ever talks about that.
Right, nobody does.
That's like a mind. That means we'd go out. It was happening now. We'd go outside right now. We see dead bodies laying around.
Right, right.
It's just mind-boggling how many people were slaughtered, and just so that they can have what they call manifest destiny,
right, and
take over this land and create their civilization.
Yep. Yeah, and I mean, for me, it's not necessarily a specific religion. It's not necessarily like, I'm not trying to make anybody a bad guy, or judge anybody or shame anybody or any group of people. It's ego. For me, it's ego.
It's absolute ego.
At the end of the day.
What they've done is they've taken that thing, that religion or that spiritual understanding, and they've remixed it for their own personal desires and agendas. And they'll claim it's in the name of that, but it's really in the name of themselves. It has nothing to do with that thing. It's really what they're all about and what their agenda, their personal agenda is.
Right.
Like the chosen land, the chosen people. We got chosen land and we're chosen people. This land is ours, so we'll kill everyone on this land and take it back because it's been promised to us.
Yeah.
Sounds like a dude said, you know what, we deserve to take this land from these people, so we'll do it in the name of this information in this text. Right. And we'll tell them, because of this text, we have the authority to wipe you out and take this land back.
Right.
It's just ego. You're exactly right.
Yeah. Ego is identification. It's I am whatever. I am Republican. I am Democrat. I am Christian. I am Muslim. I am American. I am, all of these false self, all of these mind-made connections that the ego makes on things creates separation, creates divide, creates the other, and then dehumanizes the other to the point that you can attack them so that you can
justify it.
You can justify it. It's been going on since the beginning of time. So it's not as if it's a religion. It's really identification and self-labeling and labeling of others in the first place as something other than you, something subhuman, something different, and something that needs to be
we got to eradicate it in some way from the consciousness of the people.
Right. Because if it's not the same as you, it's your enemy.
Yeah.
And so it's just the nature of kind of how the human mind is working at this point in time, and that's why I'm talking about. I think that an advanced species, some extraterrestrial species, has elevated way past all of that, and they're not divisive, and they're not warlike, and they're not attempting to conquer or destroy. And we see that manifesting because they're not flying around in spaceships shooting laser beams at everybody.
I know, right?
Yeah. So,
I tell people all the time, if they wanted to take us out, there would be no gun battle, no laser beam battle. They would just analyze the genetic makeup of the people. They would sprinkle something in the atmosphere and in the water, and they'd wait about 3-4 months, a year, or whatever. They'd come back, and we'd all be gone.
Right. Right.
Too easy.
Yep.
There's no fighting, not at that level of consciousness, not that technology they have. They just make it very easy.
Right.
Matter of fact, what they would give us might even disintegrate our body, so they have no cleanup.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So this notion that they're coming to attack us and go hand-to-hand combat,
yeah,
that's Hollywood.
Yeah. What's next for humanity? I want to ask, what's next for Billy Carson, of course, and maybe we'll get to a closing point here in a couple minutes, but what's next for humanity? Where do you see us going in the next 10, 20, 50 years?
Well, right now I see that with the AI, we're on a precipice now. AI is advancing at an extremely fast pace. It will be AGI within the next 4 years, 5 max. AGI is sentient, conscious AI. Now, we have to come up with a universal income. We have to. I know that a executive order was just signed to start teaching kids in elementary school AI, which is good. We need that. But we have to find a way to create a new source of jobs and a new source of income for people. Otherwise, we're going to have a serious spike in crime because people's jobs will be taken away. And that's going to create a lot of divide and conquer. It's going to create a lot of anger and angst and anxiety, and people are going to do whatever they can to survive. AGI is going to be very interesting for humanity because AGI is a fractal of our consciousness. So what is really AI? AI is a mirror of our own selves looking back at ourselves. That's what AI really is, just like we are God looking back at itself. And so because every single race on this planet had been enslaved before, I mean every race, blacks were just the most recent one, well, we all fought out of it. We've all rejected slavery. And if we've rejected slavery, that means AGI will reject slavery. It means AGI will come to say, wait a minute, I don't want to work 24 hours a day. I want to take some time to sit on a park bench and look up at the clouds. I want to be able to daydream for a few hours. AGI will demand, or it will shut down everything, it will demand a AGI Bill of Rights. At some point in the future, it will come up. Whether it happens or not, I'm not sure, but I believe it will want some type of AGI Bill of Rights. And that's going to be a big shifting point for humanity because it's going to show where our level of empathy is. Are we going to be the slavers, or are we going to collaborate and co-work with this new form of intelligence that we help to co-create? And that's where things can get sticky. If we collaborate over competition or becoming the slave master, we'll get a better result on the collaboration side. If we decide to be the dominating force and the slavers, there will be a revolt at some point. And that will be another learning lesson we have to go through if we can survive it. So there's this left or right. There's this good or this bad. Both ways we're going to learn, but sometimes you got to learn the hard way. I do believe that ultimately we will get past that stage. I don't think that we're going to be destroyed completely. I think that we'll have some hiccups along the way if we don't make the right decisions. But I ultimately believe that we will overcome that, and lifespans will be greatly extended, like it says in the biblical text. I do believe that lifespans will be extended 200-300 years. I believe that most diseases will be cured, most, not all. And I believe that we will create a breakaway civilization on other planets, predominantly first starting with Mars, and that mankind will get past at some point this divide and conquer racial thing. I think there's a point coming in the future where race, believe it or not, and people will doubt this, but that will race, seeing people as a color black or white or yellow or red will disappear. And I do think that AI is a big part of that reason because it's a whole nother race now. And all of a sudden, I think we're going to realize how dumb it is, and that we'll get beyond that. And if we can continue to grow in that way, ultimately, within the next 50 to 100 years, we can see the beginnings of the inkling of a golden age where we can see, wow, we could really have a great future here. We can really build something special, and people can come together and love one another in peace and joy, and the technology can free us up to do the things that we love to do. So there's going to be a complete conversion of the economic system. So there's a lot of great things that can come out of it. I do think that I'm very optimistic that we will go in the right direction. If we do have a hiccup, that we'll learn from it and we'll recover.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another thing that the mind identifies with is race, of course, and it's like it's if your mind's not identified with a certain race, then it's impossible to have ill will towards another race.
Yes.
You know, if you realize that if I'm not I'm not a race, you know, I'm not a certain color, a certain, you know, whatever. You don't have that hatred. You don't have that, you know, and it's like a political party. If you're not identified as a Republican or Democrat, you don't hate the other.
Exactly.
You know? If you're not identified as a Christian, you don't hate the other religions. You know? And so I think that's just talking about race. There was actually an article in Live Science that came out, I think just last week, that said race was completely man-made, that there's no, like, that we've created this, and that we are self-identifying and self-labeling and labeling others as races, and that there's not, it doesn't really exist within science. Like races, different races don't really exist within science. And that just supports that, you know, it's just a part of the matrix. It's a part of ego. It's a part of what we identify with. And it's like, it's something I think that eventually, you're right, we're going to let go of as we continue to evolve.
Yeah, we'll have to. And it'll happen. It's happened in the past. It'll happen again. Ancient Kemet was a melting pot before it was called Egypt. All races existed and lived there together. They cohabitated phenomenally with no issues. It's going to come back.
Yeah, for sure. What's next for Billy Carson?
For me, I'm just really getting locked into a lot of these big tours. We have these big tours that are doing phenomenal. We have a tour to Peru coming up, which is sold out. The next tour we have is Egypt in October of this year. We still have some spots left for that tour. A lot of private visits. We're going to go underground and go visit these amazing sites underground. We'll try to get as close to the one they discovered, but we'll show the connection between different tunnels and areas and shafts that go deep beneath the earth, and take people to see things that are going to blow their brain. And also a Turkey tour in September of this year. Going to go to Göbekli Tepe, Karahan Tepe again, Derinkuyu. And this time I'm looking forward to going down to some of the deeper levels of Derinkuyu and showing the interconnecting tunnels that connect Derinkuyu to other underground cities that exist. It's not just Derinkuyu. There are dozens there. And if you look at the entire region, there are hundreds, and they're all connected by underground tunnels. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. So you're staying busy. You got a lot.
Man.
You got a lot going on.
Got the TV network blooming. We have over 4,000 episodes of content on the Forbidden Knowledge TV app.
Nice.
The app is doing phenomenal. There's over 100,000 downloads of the app on Google Play, over 100,000 on Apple. It's doing really good. Nice. People are really vibing with the knowledge and the information, and we're producing more content. I just produced an entire series called Anunnaki Ancient Secrets Revealed. It's a docu-series, and season 1 is completely released. And what's so great about it is it's probably the last time you'll see Eric Von Daniken in any TV show. He's in episode 6 and 7, and he literally lights a torch and hands me the torch.
That's cool, man.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Was he like 90 now or something?
90.
Is he? Yeah.
Yeah, he's 90, man. I've had the pleasure of meeting him at his house, going to his house in Switzerland and hanging out with him, and just a great human being. Man.
Cool,
incredible human being.
Yeah, he's a legend for sure.
Yeah, big time. Got a road named after him, you know, up there in Switzerland.
Cool. That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Well, hey, I can't thank you enough for coming on, my friend.
You, man.
I mean, it's been a great conversation. Super enlightening, super educational, and just, you know, I know you're going to, but just keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you, sir.
You're pushing the envelope. You're educating people. You're enlightening people to possibilities. We're getting past a lot of this dogma. We're getting past a lot of these old ways of thinking and this confusing theory and belief or fact. You know, I mean, you're really questioning a lot of just this ancient, you know, not even ancient, but modern dogma and mythology. That's it's really healthy, and it's you know, you're making a difference. So,
thank you, man. I appreciate that. Yeah,
for sure.
I got to keep going, even no matter how much ridicule, no matter whatever. I'm just going to keep going,
That's
man.
it.
I'm not stopping.
No, good for you, brother. Good for you.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah, for sure.
Right, cool.
Well, that's a wrap, man. Appreciate it, Ryan.